At Thanksgiving dinner, my sister stood up and said loudly, "We voted, and you're not part of this family anymore." Everyone at the table clapped and cheered. I just smiled a little and said, "Then I guess you won't need this." I placed a folder on the table. The second she opened it, she started screaming. "Before we cut the turkey," Natalie said, standing with that fake smile of hers, "there's something we need to say." The room went quiet. Everyone stopped eating. I had a bad feeling. I knew that voice. She used the same one when she got me in trouble for something I didn't even do when we were kids. "We had a family vote," she continued, looking proud of herself, "and we decided you're not family anymore." There was silence, then cheering. My cousin Laura clapped like she was at a concert. Uncle Mitch raised his wine glass. Even my mom laughed and said, "Well, someone had to say it." I just sat there, frozen. My food was cold, but I was boiling inside. My dad didn't even look at me. He just sipped his beer and said, "It's probably for the best." "Wow," I said, slowly pushing back my chair. "You actually practiced this?" Natalie smiled even wider. "You've been toxic for years. We're just done pretending." My mom added, "It's unanimous," like she was talking about the weather. I looked around. No one stood up for me, not a single person. "Good," I said quietly. Then I reached into my bag. I had a feeling something like this might happen. I pulled out a thick folder and set it in the middle of the table. It hit the table with a loud thump that made everyone pause. "What is that?" Natalie asked. I leaned back and crossed my arms. "Why don't you take a look?" She grabbed it quickly and opened it, smirking like she always did when she thought she'd won. But as soon as she turned the first page, her smile vanished, her face went pale. She flipped through more pages, and then she screamed, a real, loud, horror movie kind of scream. She jumped up so fast her chair fell over and slammed the folder shut like it burned her. "You monster," she yelled, "you twisted freak." Everyone gasped. Her husband, Joel, grabbed the folder and looked through it. His mouth dropped open. He looked at me. "Is this real?" I nodded. "It's all real, every word, every receipt, every screenshot." The table went totally silent. You could hear a fork fall in the kitchen. My mom opened her mouth, then shut it again like she didn't know what to say. "You thought I'd never fight back," I said, standing. "You thought I'd stay quiet, keep paying, keep being your doormat. But guess what?" I leaned forward and looked Natalie straight in the eye. "Your little performance? It's over. You want to know what's in that folder? I'll tell you, but first, let me explain how we got here." Natalie didn't just wake up one day and say I wasn't family. That idea took years to build, one hurtful comment at a time, one betrayal after another. I was never the favorite. Natalie was the golden child. She got good grades, smiled a lot, and knew how to charm people. She could lie and still make people like her. I was quiet and kept to myself. They hated that. They thought being quiet meant I was weak. I moved out at 19, paid for college on my own, worked 2 jobs, and never asked for anything. Meanwhile, Natalie failed out of college twice, went to Europe to find herself, then came home and married Joel, who's basically a walking LinkedIn profile. And guess who paid for half the wedding? Me. My parents couldn't afford it, but still went on a cruise after. I didn't complain. I paid for my dad's dental surgery. I helped when Mom said they couldn't pay the heating bill. I even paid part of Laura's college tuition when she didn't get her scholarship. They always said thanks, but in a way that made it feel like it was expected, like I owed them. Since I didn't have a family of my own, I'm single, no kids, just me, my job, and my dog, and to them, that meant I should pay for everything. Natalie especially treated me like her backup plan. When Joel lost his job, she called me, just a small loan. When her car broke down, "You make good money, what's $2,000? When her kid needed therapy and insurance didn't cover it, she called me. And I always helped, because I believed that's what family does. But slowly, helping turned into obligation, then into expectation, and finally into demand. First, it was little jokes. "Nice wine, you must be doing well. Must be easy when you don't have kids." Then it got meaner. "You're cold, no wonder you're alone. You don't know what real life is like. You're just bitter." But they still came to me for help, always. Then came the text, "Hey, can you co-sign a loan? Joel and I want to open a wellness cafe." I said no. Natalie replied, "Wow, really?" After that, they stopped talking to me. Mom stopped calling. Dad barely texted. I wasn't invited to family dinners. Natalie blocked me online and posted about cutting out toxic people. But I didn't sit and cry. I got smart. I pulled up everything: bank transfers, emails, Screenshots. I kept records. And in just 5 years, I'd sent my family over $78,000. $78,000. $8,000 for Joel's rehab. $2,300 for Natalie's dental work, which turned out to be for veneers she didn't actually need. $1,500 for my dad's back surgery. $12,000 for my mom's credit card debt. $6,000 for Laura's college move-in costs. $4,500 for a family emergency that ended up being a trip to Cabo. And not once, did any of them offer to pay me back. They just took, and when I stopped giving, they decided I was the problem. So, I made the folder. Inside, I had every transfer confirmation, every email and text where they asked for money, screenshots of Natalie calling me manipulative after I said no to the loan, a timeline of every major payment I made in the last 5 years, and to top it off, copies of Facebook and Instagram posts where they mocked me. I even had screenshots of Natalie calling me a cash cow with no spine in a private comment thread she didn't know I could see. So yeah, that's what she saw when she opened the folder. That's what made her scream. Because Natalie wasn't just exposed, she was completely torn apart, fact by fact, page by page, and as this all unfolded, the rest of the family finally realized what they'd been doing. My mom looked like she might faint. Joel stared at one line that said, $4 $200 to cover Natalie's credit card used at a hotel in Santa Monica with someone named Alyssa, and he just asked, "What is this?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. For the first time, I wasn't defending myself. I was just showing them the truth. "You kept records?" my mom finally asked, her voice shaking. "Of everything," I said, calm as ever. "You never remembered, so someone had to." Natalie was still standing, pale, her fists clenched at her sides, her eyes darted between Joel, me, and the folder. "This is a violation," she snapped. "No, right?" I said, standing up slowly. "You just stood in front of this whole family and declared I'm not family. You all clapped, and now you're upset because I came prepared?" Joel flipped to another page in the folder. "What's this about Santa Monica?" he asked, voice tight. Natalie snapped her head toward him. "Don't start." "Who's Alyssa?" he asked. "Why were you at a hotel for 3 nights on my credit card?" Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. "Wait," my mom said, holding up her hands. "Can we just calm down and talk this through?" "Sure," I said. "Let's be reasonable. Let's talk about the time you called me a parasite while cashing the check I sent you." She blinked. "That's not fair. We were under stress." "No," I snapped. "You were under stress, and I bailed you out every single time. And the one time I say no, suddenly I'm the enemy?" My dad, who hadn't said anything until now, finally spoke. "You're making this into something bigger than it is." I turned to him, my voice low. "You let them do this to me for years. You knew, you saw it, you heard it, and you let it happen because it was easier than standing up to them." He didn't deny it. Natalie slammed her fist on the table. "You're just bitter because no one needs you anymore." "Wrong," I said coldly. "I'm not bitter. I'm done." She laughed bitterly. "You're pathetic. Do you realize how dramatic this all looks? Bringing a folder, printing screenshots? You think this makes you the victim? You're just proving you're a control freak." "And you're just proving," I said, "that you only cared about me when I was paying your bills. You don't get to play the martyr." She shouted, "You chose to help. You didn't have to." "And yet," I said, stepping forward, "you expected it every single time until it wasn't help anymore. It was duty, and when I stopped, you voted me out." My voice cracked, not from sadness, but from rage. "You didn't want a sister. You wanted a wallet with legs." Joel stood up, holding the folder. "Is this true?" he asked, looking at Natalie. "All of this?" Natalie looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't have a comeback. No fake tears, no deflection, just silence. "You lied to me," he said, "about the hotel, about the money, about him. You made me think he was crazy." "I had to," she exploded. "He was turning everyone against me." "I wasn't," I said. "You did that all by yourself." The room fell silent again. Then my mom leaned forward, trying one more time. Her voice softened. "Listen, honey, we may have overreacted, but this is still family, and family fights. Let's just put this behind us." I cut her off. "You're not hearing me." She blinked. "What?" "I'm not asking for peace. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm telling you I'm done." Natalie sneered. "Oh, stop pretending like this is some big moment. You've said that before." I looked her dead in the eye. Not like this. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out another envelope. What now? My dad asked, clearly tired. I tossed it onto the table. Joel caught it before it could slide off. He opened it. Read the first line, and his eyes widened. What is this? He whispered. I answered for him. Power of attorney forms for mom. Revoked. Medical proxy revoked. Emergency contact removed. I've already signed the papers. I'm not legally or emotionally responsible for any of you anymore. My mom gasped. You're cutting us off completely? Yes, I said. Starting now. You're being selfish, she cried. We made mistakes, but we're still your family. I looked at her, calm and steady. No, you're not. I grabbed my coat, gave them one last look, and walked out, right in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. The food was cold, the truth was out, and no one could say a word. I walked away. And I didn't look back. Not because it didn't hurt. It did. But as I closed their door behind me and stepped into the cold night, something changed. I could finally breathe. I didn't go straight home. I stopped by the lake I used to visit as a kid, the place where Dad and I used to fish. I sat in silence, staring at the water. And for the first time in years, I felt peace. No one needed money. No one was calling for a favor. No pressure, just quiet. The next day, silence. The day after that, still nothing. Then the messages started. First, my mom, missed calls, then a voicemail. Do you really mean it? We were angry, but we're still your family. I didn't answer. Then Natalie, Joel's filing for divorce. Are you happy now? Something's seriously wrong with you. I ignored that too. Then my dad, you went too far. Yeah, we said things we regret, but what you did was way over the line. Your mother's a mess. Fix this. Still, I didn't reply. I thought I'd feel guilty, but I didn't. I slept better than I had in years. No more stressing over texts. No more sudden Venmo requests. No more fake emergencies. Just peace. I started waking up early, taking runs, making coffee slowly instead of rushing. I made all the appointments I'd been putting off, doctor, dentist, even a therapist. Not because I was broken, but because I finally had space to care for myself. I updated my emergency contacts, took my parents off, changed my passwords, froze every joint account, blocked Natalie everywhere. It wasn't revenge. It was closure. A week after Thanksgiving, I got a message from Laura, my cousin who clapped when they kicked me out. I didn't know you paid for my tuition. I'm sorry, I just went along with everyone. You were always the one helping. I didn't reply, but I read it, twice. Then something I didn't expect, Joel messaged me. I filed for divorce. Everything in that folder was real. She lied to me too. You were right. Then he added, you did the right thing. I should have left sooner. That hit different. A few days later, I did something big. I applied for a job in another city. Not to run away, but because I was finally free. No more stay close to help the family. No more guilt tripping. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years, people I'd lost touch with because I was always stuck dealing with family stuff. The crazy part? Some of them saw my post online. They reached out and said things like, we're proud of you. That took courage. No one asked for money. No one guilt me. Just support. Someone asked me, do you regret it? I thought for a second. No, I only regret not doing it sooner. I thought that was the end of it. But with people like them, it's never that simple. The first few weeks were peaceful, quiet, beautifully quiet. Then came Christmas. December 22nd, my mom sent a photo. Their living room, decorations, tree, an empty space where the gifts used to be. It doesn't feel the same without you, the message said. Ellie keeps asking why Uncle isn't coming. I stared at it. No apology, no responsibility. Just guilt. Look who you're hurting. I didn't reply. December 23rd, Natalie called. I didn't answer. Then a text. I know I messed up, but don't punish everyone. Come for Ellie, she misses you. 2 minutes later, also. Mom and Dad are behind on their mortgage. The bank called. I thought you should know. There it was. The ask. Wrapped in guilt, fake softness, but always an ask. I blocked her. December 24th, Dad sent a text. You made your point, but enough is enough. We need help, we're still your blood. That night, I sat by the fire with a glass of wine. No tree, no noise, just quiet. And I was thankful. But it didn't stop. In January, I got a call from an unknown number. I picked up. "Is this Daniel?" a man asked. "Yes, who's calling?" "My name is Mark. Your father asked me to reach out. He said you're the primary person on the family trust." "I'm not," I said. I removed myself. "It was finalized 2 months ago." He paused. "Oh, your father said he couldn't reach you and needed help. They're in a tough spot." Of course they were. The ATM was closed. The backup plan was gone. They were getting desperate. I hung up. But that wasn't even the last straw. That came in February. One day, I got an envelope in the mail, no return address, but I knew the handwriting. It was my mom's. Inside was a 3-page letter. Page 1 was all about regret. "We said things we didn't mean. You've always been the strong one. We didn't realize how much we depended on you." Page 2 was full of guilt. "Your dad's health isn't good. Natalie's all alone. We're worried about Ellie, she's having a hard time." Page 3 was the real reason they wrote. "We're selling the house, but we're behind on the mortgage. We just need a little help, then we won't ask again. Please, Daniel, do it for your dad, for the family." I sat with the letter for a while and let myself feel it all. The pressure, the guilt, the urge to fix everything. Then I folded the letter, walked to the kitchen, and threw it in the trash. Because the truth is, they weren't really asking for help. They wanted access, again. They didn't miss me. They missed the version of me who never said no. The one who paid, who gave, who stayed quiet. But that version of me? He's gone. I'm not their backup plan anymore. Not their bank, not their fixer. I'm done. And the scary thing, for them? I'm actually doing fine without them. I got a new job in a new city. A bigger place, a fresh start. I volunteer on weekends now, not because someone needs me, but because I want to. I built a life where no one calls me late at night to clean up their mess. Where independence isn't punished. Where kindness isn't used against me. I don't regret helping them before. But I do regret how long it took to stop. Want to know what peace feels like? It's not being surrounded by people who call themselves family. It's being free from people who only use that word when they want something. Update, months later. I didn't expect this post to get much attention, I just needed to let it out. But I read every comment. To everyone who said, "You were brave, they didn't deserve you, thank you." I didn't know how much I needed to hear that. Some people asked, "But what if they change?" Yeah, I asked myself that too. It's been a few months now. They didn't change. After everything, the folder, the yelling, the silence, the letters, I hoped someone would understand, that maybe, just once, someone would say, "We're sorry." They never did. First, they got quiet. Then they got clever. Then they got desperate. Then they got cruel, again. But me? I got free. I moved to a new place. Got a better job. Started real therapy. Not the kind where you try to fix others. The kind where you finally learn how to care for yourself. I cook now, I sleep better, I go outside more. And when my phone buzzes, I don't flinch. Yes, I still think about Ellie sometimes. I worry about what she's learning, about what she'll grow up thinking is normal. But I also know, I showed her something different. That it's okay to say enough. A few days ago, I got another letter from my mom, just 3 words. "We're still family." No context, no apology, no change. Just the same old guilt trip. For the first time, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. I threw it away. Then I made dinner. I came back here because this space helped me see clearly. Strangers understood me more than my own family ever did. So here's what I want to ask. Did I do the right thing? Cutting them off, letting go, saying no, and meaning it. Was I too harsh? Or was I just finally done being the only one holding everything together? I'm not sure. But I do know this. For the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving. I'm living. Thanks for reading. Still here, still listening.
I stared at the little plastic stick in my hand, my heart pounding with a mix of excitement and disbelief. 2 pink lines. Pregnant. After months of trying, it had finally happened. A wave of joy washed over me as I imagined holding our baby in my arms, Dean's eyes sparkling with pride and love. I couldn't wait to tell him the news. Dean had been so supportive throughout our journey, never losing hope, even when I felt discouraged. He was going to be an amazing father. As soon as he walked through the door that evening, I rushed to greet him, practically bouncing with anticipation. "Dean, I have something to tell you," I said, unable to contain my smile. He raised an eyebrow, his expression curious. "What is it, honey?" I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air, and for a split second I saw a flicker of surprise cross his face. But then his expression hardened and a cold, unfamiliar look settled in his eyes. "That's impossible," he said flatly. My heart sank. "What do you mean? We've been trying for so long and the test was positive." "I'm sterile, Marla." His words cut through me like a knife. "I can't have children." I stared at him, my mind reeling. Sterile? How could that be? He had never mentioned anything like that before. But why didn't you tell me?" I stammered, tears welling up in my eyes. Dean's jaw tightened. "Because I didn't think I needed to. But now it's clear what's really going on here." A sickening realization dawned on me as I saw the accusation in his eyes. "Dean, no, you can't possibly think I would. You've been unfaithful, haven't you?" he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "That's the only explanation for this." I recoiled as if he had slapped me. "How can you say that? After everything we've been through together?" He shook his head, his expression hardening further. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Tears streamed down my face as I tried to process the sudden shift in our reality. Just moments ago, I had been filled with such joy and hope, and now it felt like my world was crumbling around me. As if the situation couldn't get any worse, something caught my eye. An old, leather-bound book peeking out from a box in the corner of the room. Curiosity and desperation drove me to investigate, and as I flipped through the pages, a shocking truth began to unfold. The diary belonged to Dean's grandmother, and within its pages, I found entries hinting at a long-held family secret. Dean's sterility had been known for generations, but his parents had gone to great lengths to conceal it, manipulating situations and people to maintain the illusion of normalcy. I felt sick to my stomach as I realized the depth of the deception. Dean's own family had lied to him, robbing him of the chance to come to terms with his condition and make informed decisions about his life. And now that same web of lies was threatening to tear us apart, casting doubt on the very foundation of our relationship. As I clutched the diary, a newfound determination took root within me. I would not let this secret destroy us. I would find a way to unravel the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Because in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. The love I felt for Dean and the life we had built together was worth fighting for. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I was trapped in a waking nightmare. Dean's accusations still rang in my ears, and the weight of the family secret I had uncovered threatened to crush me. I knew I couldn't face this alone. Steeling myself, I called my parents and asked them to come over. As difficult as it was, I needed their support and guidance. When they arrived, I could see the concern etched on their faces. "Marla, what's going on?" my mother asked, her voice trembling slightly. I took a deep breath and laid everything out for them: the pregnancy, Dean's revelation about his sterility, and the damning entries in the old family diary. As the words tumbled out, I watched their expressions shift from confusion to shock to something darker: doubt. "Are you sure about this, honey?" my father said, his brow furrowed. "It's a serious accusation to make against your husband's family." "I know how it sounds," I pleaded, "but I swear I'm telling you the truth. Dean accused me of being unfaithful, and then I found this diary that suggests his parents have been hiding his condition for years." My mother's eyes widened. "But why would they do that?" Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Dean standing there, his expression a mix of anger and anguish. And behind him, like a looming shadow, was his mother, Evelyn. "Marla," Dean said, his voice strained, "we need to talk about this." Evelyn stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she looked at me. "Yes, we certainly do. I can't believe you would stoop so low as to accuse my son of such things." I recoiled at the venom in her tone. "Evelyn, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just trying to understand what's going on." "What's going on is that you've been unfaithful to my son," she spat. "And now you're trying to cover it up with these ridiculous lies about our family." My parents shifted uncomfortably behind me, and I could sense their doubts growing stronger. Evelyn's words carried a weight of authority, and I realized she was a master at manipulation. "That's not true," I insisted, my voice wavering. "I found a diary that suggests you've known about Dean's condition all along and have been hiding it." Evelyn's eyes flashed with anger. "How dare you? That diary is nothing but a pack of lies written by a bitter, jealous woman who couldn't stand to see our family's happiness." I opened my mouth to protest, but she cut me off. "And let's not forget your husband's previous marriage," she continued, her tone dripping with disdain. "His ex-wife got pregnant almost immediately after they wed. Isn't that proof enough of his condition?" My heart sank as I saw the doubt creeping into my parents' expressions. Evelyn was skilled at twisting the narrative, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. "I can't believe you're taking her side in this," Dean said, his voice laced with hurt. I looked at him, my eyes pleading. "Dean, please, you have to believe me. I would never betray you like that." But the damage was done. Evelyn had sown the seeds of doubt, and they were taking root in the minds of those closest to me. I felt utterly alone, trapped in a web of lies and mistrust that threatened to suffocate me. As Evelyn and my parents continued to argue, their voices swirling around me like a tempest, I realized that this was just the beginning. If I wanted to clear my name and expose the truth, I would have to fight, not just for myself, but for the love and trust that had once been the foundation of my marriage. And in that moment, I vowed to do whatever it took to unravel the tangled threads of betrayal that had ensnared us all. After the confrontation with Evelyn and my family, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of doubt and betrayal. The only lifeline I had was the old diary and the glimpses of truth it offered. I pored over its pages, desperate to unravel the tangled web of lies that had ensnared us all. As I read through the entries, a sickening pattern emerged. Evelyn had known about Dean's sterility from the beginning, but instead of accepting it, she had made it her mission to conceal it at all costs. She had manipulated situations, people, and even her own son's life to maintain the illusion of a perfect family. The diary revealed how Evelyn had orchestrated Dean's failed first marriage, driving a wedge between him and his ex-wife when she became pregnant too quickly. It was all part of her twisted plan to protect the family's honor, even if it meant sacrificing her son's happiness. I felt physically ill as I realized the depth of Evelyn's deceit. How could a mother be so cruel, so consumed by her own pride and desire for control? In that moment, I knew I couldn't face this alone. I needed someone in my corner, someone who understood the true nature of Evelyn's manipulations. That's when I thought of Gladys. Gladys had been a close friend of Evelyn's years ago, but their friendship had ended abruptly under mysterious circumstances. If anyone could shed light on Evelyn's true character, it would be her. I called Gladys and arranged to meet her at a local cafe. As soon as she saw me, her eyes widened with concern. "Marla, dear, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath and launched into the whole sordid tale: Dean's accusations, the diary, and the revelations about Evelyn's manipulations. Gladys listened intently, her expression growing darker with each passing moment. "I should have known," she muttered when I finished. "Evelyn was always obsessed with maintaining appearances, no matter the cost." She went on to recount stories of Evelyn's controlling behavior, how she had always insisted on having the final say in every aspect of her children's lives. It was as if she viewed them as extensions of herself, rather than individuals with their own hopes and dreams. "I enabled her for far too long," Gladys said, her voice heavy with regret. I turned a blind eye to her machinations because I didn't want to rock the boat. But now, seeing the pain she's caused you and Dean, I can't stay silent any longer. Gladys reached across the table and took my hand, her eyes shining with determination. "I'll do whatever I can to help you expose the truth, Marla. Evelyn's reign of deceit has gone on for far too long." As I looked into Gladys's kind, resolute face, I felt a newfound sense of strength. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore. With her support and the evidence from the diary, I knew I had a chance to unravel the lies that had bound us all for so long. And in that moment, I made a vow. I would stop at nothing to bring Evelyn's manipulations to light and reclaim the dignity and trust that she had so callously stolen from us. After my conversation with Gladys, I knew I couldn't go back to the life I had before. The weight of Evelyn's deception was too heavy, and the cracks in my marriage too deep to simply ignore. I needed space, a safe haven where I could process everything and decide my next steps. Gladys didn't hesitate when I asked if I could stay with her for a while. "Of course, dear," she said, enveloping me in a warm embrace. "You're welcome here for as long as you need." As I packed my belongings, my mind kept drifting back to the early days of my relationship with Dean. Had Evelyn's manipulations been present even then, subtly shaping our path? I thought back to the way she had insisted on an extravagant wedding, far beyond our means at the time. Had that been her way of asserting control from the start? And what about the pressure she had put on us to have children right away? Was that just another ploy to further her twisted agenda? With each memory that surfaced, I felt a growing sense of anger and betrayal. How much of our life together had been tainted by Evelyn's lies and machinations? Gladys could see the turmoil brewing within me. "You know, Marla," she said gently, "Evelyn has always been like this. Even when we were friends, I could see the way she tried to control every aspect of her children's lives." She shook her head, a pained expression crossing her face. "I should have spoken up, tried to stop her, but I was too much of a coward back then." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "You can't blame yourself, Gladys. Evelyn is the one who chose to live a lie, no matter who got hurt in the process." Gladys smiled sadly. "Still, I'm grateful for the chance to make things right, to be there for you in a way I couldn't be for Dean." As the days passed, Gladys became my rock, my confidant. She listened patiently as I poured out my frustrations, my fears, and my determination to confront Evelyn and Dean with the truth. With her support, I felt my resolve growing stronger, like a steel cable being forged in the fires of betrayal. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, sipping iced tea and watching the sunset, Gladys turned to me with a serious expression. "Marla, I know you're hurting, and you have every right to be angry, but I want you to promise me something." I met her gaze, curiosity and a hint of trepidation flickering within me. "Promise me that when you confront Evelyn, you won't let her manipulations get to you. Don't let her twist the narrative or make you doubt yourself. You have the truth on your side, and that's a power she can never take away from you." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "I promise, Gladys. I won't let her win this time." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the porch, I knew that my path forward would be anything but easy. But with Gladys by my side and the strength of my convictions guiding me, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The time had come to unravel the threads of Evelyn's deceit, one strand at a time, until the truth was laid bare for all to see. With each passing day, my determination to expose Evelyn's web of lies grew stronger. The more I delved into the diary's pages, the more shocking revelations I uncovered. It was as if a veil had been lifted, allowing me to see the true extent of her manipulations. One afternoon, as I pored over the diary, a familiar name caught my eye, Mrs. Wilkins. She had been a close friend of Evelyn's years ago, but their friendship had ended abruptly under mysterious circumstances. Could she hold the key to unraveling more of Evelyn's secrets? I tracked down Mrs. Wilkins's address and paid her a visit, my heart pounding with a mix of trepidation and determination. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. "Marla? My goodness, it's been years. What brings you here, dear?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "Mrs. Wilkins, I need to ask you about Evelyn." Her expression darkened, and she ushered me inside. "I should have known this was about her," she muttered. As we settled into her cozy living room, I laid out everything I had discovered, the diary, Evelyn's manipulations, and the devastating impact it had all had on my marriage. Mrs. Wilkins listened intently, her brow furrowed. When I finished, she let out a heavy sigh. "I can't say I'm surprised, Marla. Evelyn has always been a master of deception, willing to sacrifice anyone and anything for her own twisted sense of pride." She went on to recount stories of Evelyn's controlling behavior, how she had always insisted on having the final say in every aspect of her children's lives. It was as if she viewed them as extensions of herself, rather than individuals with their own hopes and dreams. Our friendship ended because I finally saw her for who she truly was, Mrs. Wilkins said, her voice laced with regret. I confronted her about her manipulations, and she couldn't handle the truth being exposed. She cut me out of her life, just like that. As I listened to Mrs. Wilkins' words, a newfound sense of clarity washed over me. Evelyn's actions weren't born out of love or concern for her family. They were rooted in a deep-seated need for control, a desperate desire to maintain an illusion of perfection at any cost. It was then that I knew what I had to do. I couldn't let Evelyn continue to weave her tangled web of lies, ensnaring anyone who dared to challenge her. It was time to confront her, to lay bare the truth for all to see. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed allies, people who had seen Evelyn's true colors and were willing to stand up against her manipulations. That evening, when Dean came knocking at Gladys' door, I was ready. I opened it and looked him square in the eye, my resolve unwavering. "Dean, I know the truth now, and I'm going to expose your mother's lies whether you help me or not." He recoiled, his expression a mix of shock and guilt. "Marla, please, I don't know if I can go against her like that." I shook my head, my jaw set. "Then you're just as much a victim of her manipulations as I am, but I won't let her control me any longer." With that, I turned and began making plans for a gathering, a reckoning of sorts. I would invite Evelyn, our families, and anyone else who had been touched by her web of deceit. And there, in front of them all, I would lay out the evidence, the testimonies, and the undeniable truth. It was time for Evelyn's reign of lies to come to an end, once and for all. The day of the gathering arrived, and I could feel the weight of anticipation pressing down on me. This was it, the moment of reckoning, where I would finally expose Evelyn's web of lies and reclaim the truth that had been stolen from us all. Gladys's living room had been transformed, the cozy space now filled with an array of chairs and a makeshift podium at the front. One by one, the guests began to arrive. My parents, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. Mrs. Wilkins, her face set in grim determination. And finally, Dean and Evelyn, the latter's eyes narrowing as she surveyed the scene. As Evelyn took her seat, her gaze locked onto mine, and I could see the challenge in her eyes. She was daring me, silently taunting me to try and unravel the carefully constructed facade she had built around her life. But I was ready. I had spent weeks gathering evidence, poring over the diary's pages, and speaking to those who had witnessed Evelyn's manipulations firsthand. This was my moment, and I would not let her intimidate me. I stepped up to the podium, my hands trembling slightly as I arranged my notes. Taking a deep breath, I began. "Thank you all for coming today. I know this gathering may seem strange, but I promise there is a purpose behind it." I paused, my gaze sweeping across the room, lingering on Evelyn's impassive face. For too long, we have been living under the shadow of lies and deception. A web of secrets, carefully woven by one person, has threatened to tear our families apart. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, and I could see the confusion and curiosity etched on their faces. "That person is you, Evelyn," I said, my voice ringing out with newfound strength. "You have spent years manipulating those around you, all in the name of preserving your twisted idea of family honor." Evelyn's eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, silencing her. "I have proof," I continued, brandishing the diary. "This belonged to your mother-in-law, and within its pages she details the lengths you went to in order to conceal Dean's sterility." Gasps echoed through the room, and I saw Dean's head snap up, his eyes wide with shock. "You orchestrated his failed first marriage, driving a wedge between him and his ex-wife when she became pregnant too quickly. You saw it as proof of his condition, and you couldn't bear the thought of your family's imperfection being exposed." Evelyn's face had gone pale, her lips pressed into a thin line, but I wasn't finished. "And when I became pregnant, instead of celebrating the joy of a new life, you immediately accused me of infidelity. You couldn't fathom the idea that your carefully constructed lie might crumble." I turned to Dean, my heart aching for the pain I knew he must be feeling. "Dean, your mother has controlled every aspect of your life, robbing you of the chance to come to terms with your condition and make your own choices. She has treated you like a possession rather than a human being with hopes and dreams of your own." Tears glistened in Dean's eyes as the weight of my words sank in. Evelyn, meanwhile, had risen to her feet, her face contorted with rage. "How dare you?" she spat, her voice trembling with fury. "You have no idea what you're talking about, you ungrateful little—" But her words were drowned out by a chorus of voices, a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Mrs. Wilkins, my parents, even Gladys, they had all seen the truth laid bare, and they were not going to let Evelyn's lies stand any longer. As the confrontation reached its peak, with Evelyn's manipulations unraveling before our very eyes, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. The truth had been set free, and there was no turning back. In that moment, I knew that no matter what happened next, I had won. Evelyn's reign of deceit was over, and I had reclaimed the dignity and trust that she had so callously stolen from me. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where honesty and love would triumph over the twisted machinations of a woman who had lost sight of what truly mattered. The aftermath of the confrontation was like a whirlwind, emotions swirling around me in a dizzying vortex. As the shock of Evelyn's exposed lies began to settle, the true weight of what had transpired hit me with full force. Dean sat slumped in his chair, his face ashen, eyes fixed on the floor. The revelations about his mother's manipulations had shattered his world, leaving him adrift in a sea of confusion and betrayal. When he finally looked up at me, his expression was a haunting mix of anguish and shame. "Marla, His voice cracked, the words seeming to catch in his throat. "I'm so sorry. For everything." I felt a pang of sympathy for him, even in the midst of my own turmoil. He had been a victim of Evelyn's machinations just as much as I had, perhaps even more so. Reaching out, I placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I know, Dean. It's not your fault." Across the room, Evelyn sat rigid, her jaw clenched, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. The once formidable matriarch had been reduced to a shell of her former self, her carefully constructed facade crumbling around her. One by one, the others began to voice their outrage, their disbelief at the depths of her deception. Mrs. Wilkins, her face etched with a mix of anger and vindication, recounted the ways Evelyn had manipulated and controlled those around her, all in service of her twisted idea of family honor. My parents, too, added their voices to the chorus, expressing their shame at having doubted me, at allowing Evelyn's lies to cloud their judgment. Their words were laced with remorse, but also a newfound determination to support me, no matter what. As the emotional storm raged on, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The truth had been laid bare, and while the fallout was painful, it was also strangely liberating. The weight of Evelyn's lies had been lifted, and I was free to chart my own course, unencumbered by her manipulations. In that moment, I knew that my path forward would not be an easy one. The scars of betrayal ran deep, and the trust that had once been the foundation of my marriage had been shattered. But I also knew that I had the strength and resilience to rebuild, to forge a new life on my own terms. As the gathering began to disperse, Gladys pulled me aside, her eyes shining with a mix of pride and concern. "Marla, my dear, you were so brave today," she said, enveloping me in a warm embrace. "I know it couldn't have been easy, but you did what needed to be done." I nodded, blinking back tears. It was the only way. I couldn't let her control me anymore. Gladys smiled, her expression tinged with sadness. "I know, and now it's time for you to focus on healing, on finding your way forward." She paused, her gaze drifting over to where Dean sat, still lost in his own private anguish. "As for him, well, that's a journey he'll have to navigate on his own, but know that whatever path you choose, I'll be here for you every step of the way." As I looked into Gladys's kind, unwavering eyes, I felt a surge of gratitude. She had been my rock throughout this entire ordeal, a beacon of strength and support when I had felt adrift in a sea of lies and mistrust. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would not face them alone. With Gladys by my side and the love and support of those who truly mattered, I would find a way to rebuild, to reclaim the life that Evelyn's manipulations had nearly stolen from me. It would be a long and difficult road, but I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the truth and a newfound sense of resilience that no one, not even Evelyn, could ever take away. In the weeks that followed the explosive confrontation, my life underwent a seismic shift. The foundations I had built my world upon, my marriage, my trust in family, had been shattered, leaving me to pick up the pieces and forge a new path forward. It wasn't an easy decision, but I knew that I couldn't continue living under the shadow of Evelyn's lies and manipulations. As much as a part of me still loved Dean, the betrayal ran too deep, the scars too raw. We needed space, time to heal and come to terms with the truth that had been revealed. Gladys was my rock throughout it all, offering her unwavering support and a safe haven as I navigated the emotional turmoil. With her guidance, I began the process of disentangling myself from the life I had known, severing the ties that had bound me to Evelyn's toxic influence. Dean, for his part, seemed adrift, struggling to reconcile the mother he had known with the manipulative, deceitful woman who had been exposed. I could see the guilt and shame etched into the lines of his face, the weight of realizing how deeply he had been controlled. "I'm going to seek help," he told me one day, his voice heavy with resolve. "I need to work through all of this to understand how I could have been so blind to her machinations." I nodded, offering him a small, sad smile. "I think that's a wise decision, Dean. You've been through a lot, too." As for Evelyn, she remained defiant, refusing to acknowledge the truth or take responsibility for the pain she had caused. Her once formidable presence had diminished, her aura of control replaced by a bitter, isolated existence. One by one, those who had once enabled her manipulations turned their backs, leaving her to stew in the consequences of her own actions. My parents, too, had undergone a transformation. The shame and regret they felt for doubting me had ignited a newfound determination to be the supportive, loving family I had always deserved. They rallied around me, offering a safe harbor as I charted my course towards a future free from Evelyn's toxic influence. And through it all, Gladys remained my steadfast companion, her wisdom and kindness a beacon guiding me through the storm. We forged a bond that transcended friendship, becoming more like family, the kind of family built on honesty, trust, and unconditional love. As the months passed, I began to find joy in the simple things again. The warmth of Gladys's embrace, the laughter shared over cups of tea, the quiet moments of reflection where I could appreciate how far I had come. I focused my energy on preparing for the arrival of my child, determined to create a loving, nurturing environment free from the lies and manipulation that had nearly torn my world apart. And when the day finally came, and I held my beautiful baby in my arms, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would be the author of my own story, crafting a narrative of resilience, strength, and unwavering love. As I gazed into my child's eyes, I made a silent vow. No more lies, no more secrets. This little life would grow up knowing the truth, surrounded by people who valued honesty above all else. Evelyn's twisted legacy would end with me, and in its place, a new generation would rise, one built on the foundations of trust, dignity, and the unbreakable bonds of family. It was a daunting task, but one I was ready to embrace with open arms. For in that moment, I knew that I had reclaimed the power to shape my own destiny, free from the threads of betrayal that had once threatened to bind me. The future was mine to write, and I intended to craft a story worth telling. I smoothed down the front of my dress, admiring the way the soft cream-colored fabric draped elegantly over my figure. At 52, I still had it, and this mother-of-the-groom dress was going to turn heads at Jasper's wedding. I smiled at my reflection, feeling a flutter of excitement. "Oh, for heaven's sake," came a sharp voice from behind me. "You can't seriously be wearing that, Susan." I turned to see Fiona, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, standing in the doorway of the bridal shop's fitting room. Her lips were curled in a sneer, blue eyes cold as ice. "What's wrong with it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jasper appeared behind Fiona, his arm snaking around her waist. "Mom, it's a bit much, don't you think? You're not the bride, you know." The way he said "Mom" dripped with sarcasm. Even after 5 years of marriage to his father, Jasper had never truly accepted me as family. "I think it's lovely," I said, lifting my chin. "Clark, honey, what do you think?" My husband stepped into view, his eyes darting nervously between me and his son. "Well, it's nice, dear, but maybe something a little less showy?" I felt my cheeks burn. "Showy? It's cream-colored, for goodness sake. It's hardly a sequined showgirl costume." Fiona laughed, a sharp, cruel sound. "Oh, Susan, why are you even trying so hard? You're just a placeholder, you know? A fake mother." The words hit me like a slap. I looked to Clark, silently pleading for him to defend me. but he just stood there, silent and useless as always. "That's a bit harsh, don't you think?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. Jasper shrugged. "She's not wrong, though. I mean, let's be real. You're not my mom. You're just the woman my dad married after she died." I felt my carefully constructed composure crumbling. "I've been in your life for 5 years, Jasper. I've tried so hard." "Save it," Fiona interrupted. "We don't need your fake motherly act. Just tone it down, okay? It's embarrassing." I looked at each of their faces. Fiona's smug satisfaction, Jasper's cold indifference, and Clark's weak, apologetic smile. Something inside me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "You want me to tone it down? I'll do better than that. I won't show up at all." Jasper rolled his eyes. "Don't be dramatic, Susan. Just pick a different dress and—" "No," I cut him off. "I'm done trying to fit into this family. I'm done being the punching bag, the outsider, the placeholder. You want me gone? You got it." I stormed past them, still wearing the beautiful cream dress. Clark called after me, but I ignored him. As I burst out of the bridal shop onto the busy street, I felt a strange mix of pain and exhilaration. For 5 years, I'd tried to be the perfect wife and stepmother. I'd cooked, cleaned, supported, and loved, only to be met with contempt and rejection at every turn. Well, no more. As I hailed a taxi, a plan began to form in my mind. They thought I was just a placeholder? I'd show them exactly what happened when you pushed this placeholder too far. The taxi pulled up and I climbed in, my cream dress billowing around me. "Where to, ma'am?" the driver asked. I met his eyes in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Home. I've got a wedding to cancel." I stormed into our house, slamming the door behind me. The sound echoed through the empty rooms, a fitting accompaniment to the rage boiling inside me. 5 years of memories flooded my mind, each one a stark reminder of my failed attempts to be part of this family. I remembered the day I married Clark, full of hope and dreams. "We're going to be so happy," he had promised. What a joke that turned out to be. The phone rang, startling me from my thoughts. Clark's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail, his pleading voice filling the air. "Susan, please, come back to the shop. We can work this out. Jasper didn't mean—" I deleted the message before he could finish. Of course, Jasper didn't mean it. He never did, according to Clark. My eyes fell on a family photo on the mantel. It was from last Christmas, Clark, Jasper, and me. We were smiling, but I remembered the argument that had preceded it. Jasper had thrown a fit about me being in the picture. "She's not family," he had yelled. "Why does she have to ruin everything?" Clark had sighed, looking away. "Son, please, just one photo, for me." I picked up the frame, my fingers tracing the fake smiles. With a sudden burst of anger, I hurled it across the room. The glass shattered, scattering across the hardwood floor. "That's more like it," I muttered, a grim satisfaction settling over me. The doorbell rang. I ignored it, but whoever it was persisted, knocking loudly. "Susan, are you in there?" It was Martha, Fiona's mother. I hesitated, then opened the door. Martha stood there, concern etched on her face. "I just heard what happened," she said, stepping inside. "Are you okay?" I laughed bitterly. "Okay, I've just been humiliated by my stepson and his fiancée while my husband stood by and did nothing. So no, Martha, I'm not okay." Martha's eyes widened as she took in my disheveled appearance, still wearing the cream-colored dress. "Oh, honey, what are you going to do?" "I'm done," I said, my voice steady. "Done trying to fit in, done being the punching bag. It's time I looked out for myself." Martha nodded slowly. "I understand, but the wedding? It's in 2 weeks. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. "Oh, I know, and I have plans for that wedding." Martha looked alarmed. "Susan, what are you thinking?" Before I could respond, the front door burst open. Clark rushed in, followed by Jasper and Fiona. "Susan, thank God you're here," Clark said, reaching for me. I stepped back, avoiding his touch. Jasper glared at me. "What the hell, Susan? You can't just run out like that. We have a wedding to plan." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man-child who had made my life miserable for 5 years, who had rejected every olive branch I'd extended. "You're right, Jasper," I said calmly. "We do have a wedding to plan, and I'll be handling all the arrangements from now on." Fiona's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about?" I smiled, a plan solidifying in my mind. "Well, since I'm just a placeholder, I might as well make myself useful. I'll take care of everything. The venue, the catering, the guest list. You two lovebirds won't have to lift a finger." Clark looked relieved. See? I knew we could work this out. Susan, thank you. I held up a hand, silencing him. Oh, I'm not doing this for you, Clark. Or for them. I'm doing this for me. As I looked at their confused faces, a thrill of anticipation ran through me. They had no idea what was coming. But they would. Soon enough, they'd all realize just how big a mistake they'd made in underestimating me. Now, I said, my voice steel, I think it's time for everyone to leave. I have a wedding to plan. I sat at the dining room table, surrounded by wedding catalogs and sample invitations, when the front door burst open. Jasper and Fiona stumbled in, giggling like teenagers. Dad, Susan, we have news, Jasper called out, his voice echoing through the house. Clark appeared from his study, a tentative smile on his face. What is it, son? Fiona thrust out her left hand, a gaudy diamond ring glittering on her finger. We're engaged, she squealed. And that's not all, Jasper added, puffing out his chest. We're pregnant. The room fell silent. I felt my stomach drop, the implications of this announcement hitting me like a ton of bricks. Clark recovered first, rushing to embrace his son. That's wonderful news. Congratulations, both of you. I stood slowly, plastering a smile on my face. Yes, congratulations, I managed to say, my voice sounding hollow even to my own ears. Fiona's eyes narrowed as she looked at me. Thanks, Susan. I hope you'll be as excited about being a grandmother as you are about being a mother-in-law. The barb stung, but I refused to let it show. Of course, dear. When's the wedding? Jasper grinned. We're thinking next month. No point in waiting, right? Clark's eyebrows shot up. Next month? That's soon, very soon. We're planning to pay for it ourselves, Jasper boasted, though his eyes flickered to his father. But you know, if you wanted to chip in. I saw right through his act. They were broke, probably hoping Clark would foot the bill for this rushed wedding. Clark, predictable as ever, nodded eagerly. Of course, son, whatever you need, we're family after all. Family. The word echoed in my mind, mocking me. I'd spent 5 years trying to be part of this family, only to be constantly reminded that I was an outsider. Well, I said, my voice syrupy sweet, since we're family, why don't I take care of all the arrangements? I have experience in event planning, after all. Fiona's smile faltered. Oh, that's not necessary. I insist. I cut her off. Consider it my wedding gift to you both. Jasper and Fiona exchanged a look, clearly caught off guard by my offer. Clark beamed at me. That's very generous of you, Susan. See? I told you she'd come around. If only he knew what I was really planning. Great. I clapped my hands together. Let's start with the guest list. I assume you'll want all your college friends there, Jasper? And Fiona, your entire extended family? They nodded, looking slightly overwhelmed. Perfect. I'll need their contact information. Oh, and we'll need to book the venue, the caterer, the florist. So much to do in just a month. As I rattled off tasks, I could see the reality of their hasty decision setting in. Fiona's face paled, while Jasper's confident smirk began to waver. Maybe we should wait, Fiona started to say, but Jasper cut her off. No, we can do this. Right, Susan? I smiled, a plan already forming in my mind. Of course we can. Leave everything to me. As they left the room, discussing baby names and honeymoon destinations, I turned to Clark. Darling, I'll need access to our joint account for the wedding expenses. He nodded absently, still beaming with pride over his son's news. I watched them all, these people who had made me feel so small, so insignificant. They had no idea what was coming. This wedding, this celebration they were so excited about would be their undoing, and I would be the architect of their downfall. As I picked up my phone to start making calls, a cold satisfaction settled over me. Let them have their moment of joy. Soon enough, they'd learn what happens when you underestimate Susan Whitaker. I sat at my desk, surrounded by wedding plans and a sense of grim satisfaction. The past week had been a whirlwind of deception. Each phone call and email another thread in my intricate web of revenge. Susan? Clark's voice called from downstairs. Jasper and Fiona are here. They want to discuss the wedding plans. I took a deep breath, smoothing my features into a mask of calm. Coming, dear. As I descended the stairs, I could hear Fiona's shrill voice. I just don't understand why we can't see the guest list, Susan. It's our wedding, after all. I entered the living room, a serene smile plastered on my face. Oh, Fiona, darling, I told you it's all taken care of. Don't you trust me? Jasper snorted. Trust you? That's rich. I felt a flicker of anger, but pushed it down. Now, I'm only trying to help. You two focus on the baby, and I'll handle the wedding details. Clark nodded approvingly. See? Susan's got everything under control. If only they knew. I'd spent the past week systematically dismantling their perfect day. The guest list? Completely fabricated. The venue? Double booked. The caterer? Cancelled. And the best part? They had no idea. Fiona's eyes narrowed. I want to see the contracts, Susan, for the venue, the caterer, everything. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. I hadn't anticipated this level of scrutiny, but I'd come too far to back down now. Of course, I said smoothly. I'll gather everything for you to review tomorrow. Now, how about we discuss the seating arrangements? As I distracted them with trivial details, my mind raced. I needed to cover my tracks, and fast. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, I slipped into Clark's study. His computer held all our financial records, including the wedding expenses. With trembling hands, I logged in and began creating false invoices and contracts. Hours passed as I fabricated an entire paper trail. By the time the first rays of sunlight crept through the window, I had a stack of convincing documents ready for Fiona's inspection. But as I shut down the computer, a notification popped up. An email from the bank, flagging unusual activity on our joint account. My heart stopped. In my haste to create the illusion of wedding preparations, I'd made too many transactions. The bank was suspicious. I quickly deleted the email, but the damage was done. It was only a matter of time before Clark noticed the discrepancies. The next morning, I handed Fiona the folder of fake documents with a smile. Here you go, dear. Everything you need to know about the wedding plans. Fiona flipped through the pages, her brow furrowing. This all looks expensive. Only the best for family, I said, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. As Fiona and Jasper pored over the documents, Clark pulled me aside. Susan, did you see that email from the bank? There's something odd about our account. I felt the walls closing in. My carefully constructed plan was unraveling faster than I could patch it. Oh? I feigned ignorance. I'm sure it's nothing, dear. Probably just all the wedding expenses. Clark frowned. Maybe, but I think I should call the bank just to be sure. As he reached for his phone, I made a split-second decision. It was time to accelerate my plans. Actually, Clark, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, there's something I need to tell you, all of you. 3 pairs of eyes turned to me, curious and unsuspecting. In that moment, I realized there was no turning back. The truth was about to come out, one way or another. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the storm that was about to break. About the wedding. There's been a slight change of plans. The morning of Jasper and Fiona's wedding dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I stood in front of my closet, bypassing the expensive mother-of-the-groom dress I'd bought weeks ago. Instead, I pulled on a pair of jeans and a casual blouse. Today wasn't about blending in. It was about standing out. As I made my way downstairs, the house was eerily quiet. Clark had left early to help with preparations, but I knew better. My husband was about to walk into the chaos I'd meticulously orchestrated. I grabbed my car keys and headed to the venue. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Jasper pacing outside, phone pressed to his ear. Fiona sat on a nearby bench, her white dress billowing in the breeze, mascara streaking her cheeks. What do you mean you never got a booking? Jasper was shouting into his phone. The wedding is today? I approached slowly, savoring the moment. Is there a problem? I asked innocently. Jasper whirled on me, his face contorted with rage. What did you do? He demanded. I smiled calmly. I did what needed to be done. Fiona stood up, her voice trembling. Susan, please tell me this is some kind of mistake. Where are the guests? The caterers? Anyone? I looked around the empty parking lot, then back at their desperate faces. Oh, sweethearts, I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. There is no wedding. There never was. The color drained from Jasper's face. What are you talking about? Every invitation you thought was sent, shredded. Every vendor you thought was booked, canceled. The beautiful venue you picked out, double booked for a corporate event. Fiona collapsed back onto the bench, sobs racking her body. Jasper lunged at me, but I stepped back, my hand raised in warning. Careful now, I said. You wouldn't want to make a scene. Oh wait, there's no one here to see it, is there? Why? Jasper's voice cracked. Why would you do this? I felt years of pent-up anger and hurt bubbling to the surface. Why? Because for 5 years, I've been nothing but a punching bag, a placeholder, a fake mother. Well, guess what? This fake mother just showed you how real she can be. The sound of tires on gravel made us all turn. Clark's car pulled up, his face a mask of confusion as he took in the empty lot and our tense standoff. "Susan?" he called out as he approached. "What's going on? Where is everyone?" I turned to face my husband, the man who had stood by silently for years as his son tormented me. "Ask your son, Clark. Ask him how it feels to have everything you've planned, everything you've hoped for, ripped away in an instant." Clark's eyes darted between me and Jasper, realization slowly dawning. You did this? But why?" I laughed, a hollow sound that echoed across the empty parking lot. "Why? Because you never stood up for me. Because Jasper and Fiona treated me like dirt, and you let them. Because I was tired of being the family doormat." Jasper lunged at me again, but Clark held him back. "You've ruined everything," he shouted. I stood my ground, feeling more powerful than I had in years. "No, Jasper. You ruined everything the moment you decided I wasn't worth respecting. This is just the consequences of your actions." As I watched their world crumble around them, I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered every snide comment, every dismissive gesture, every time Clark had chosen silence over defending me. The guilt evaporated, replaced by a steely resolve. "So what happens now?" Fiona asked, her voice small and broken. I looked at each of them in turn, Jasper, seething with impotent rage, Fiona, a crumpled vision in white, and Clark, his face a mixture of shock and dawning horror. "Now?" I said, my voice steady and clear. "Now, we play by my rules. And my first rule is this: respect is earned, not given. You want to be a family? Prove it." As I turned to walk away, I felt the weight of their stares on my back. I knew this was just the beginning. Not the real battle was yet to come. But for the first time in years, I was ready for it. Let them come. Susan Whittaker was done being a placeholder. It was time to take center stage. The aftermath of the wedding disaster was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, as Jasper paced back and forth, his phone glued to his ear. "No, you don't understand," he pleaded. "We need an extension on the payment." The wedding, there were complications. I suppressed a smirk. Complications indeed. Fiona burst into the room, her face blotchy from crying. "They're threatening to sue us, Jasper. The venue, the caterers, everyone." I watched as Jasper's face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for them. Almost. "What are we going to do?" Fiona wailed. "We can't afford a lawyer. We can barely afford the doctor's appointments for the baby." The baby. I felt a twinge of guilt at that. No choice. But then I remembered all the times they'd mocked me, belittled me, treated me like I was nothing. The guilt evaporated. "I have an idea," Jasper said suddenly, his eyes lighting up with a desperate gleam. "We'll make a video, explain what happened. People love a comeback story, right? We'll go viral, start a fundraiser. It'll be bigger than the wedding ever was." I couldn't help it. I laughed. The sound cut through the room like a knife, and they both turned to stare at me. "Oh, honey," I said, my voice dripping with false sweetness. "Do you really think anyone's going to believe that your evil stepmother sabotaged your perfect day? You'll be laughed off the internet." Jasper's face contorted with rage. "This is all your fault," he shouted, advancing on me. "You've ruined everything." I stood my ground, meeting his gaze coolly. "No, Jasper, you ruined everything the moment you decided I wasn't worth respecting. This is just karma." The front door opened and Clark walked in, his face haggard. He took in the scene before him, Jasper's clenched fists, Fiona's tears face, my calm demeanor, and sighed heavily. "Susan," he said, his voice weary. "Can we talk? Privately?" I followed him into his study, closing the door behind us. Clark collapsed into his chair, looking every bit his 54 years. "I've been to the bank," he said. "The wedding expenses. Susan, what have you done?" I raised an eyebrow. "I did exactly what you asked me to do, dear. I handled the wedding arrangements." "By emptying our accounts," he exploded. "By canceling everything and leaving us in debt?" I leaned forward, my voice low and dangerous. "No, Clark. By showing you all exactly what it feels like to have everything you've worked for, everything you've hoped for, ripped away in an instant, just like you've done to me for the past 5 years. Clark's face paled. "Susan, please. We can fix this. I'll make it up to you. I promise. Just help Jasper and Fiona. They're expecting a baby, for God's sake." I felt a flicker of doubt. Was I taking this too far? But then I remembered all the times Clark had stood by silently as Jasper and Fiona tore me down. All the times he'd chosen his son's happiness over my dignity. "No," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done fixing your messes, Clark. It's time you all learned to stand on your own 2 feet. A knock at the door interrupted us. Jasper burst in, his face flushed with excitement. "Dad, I've got it figured out. We'll sell the house. It'll cover the debts, and we can start fresh somewhere else." I froze. The house. My house. The one thing I had left that was truly mine. Clark looked at me, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Susan, what do you think? It could be a fresh start for all of us." I looked between them, these men who thought they could still control my life, still make decisions for me. And in that moment, I knew what I had to do. "No," I said, my voice ringing with finality. "This house is mine now. You're either with me or against me, and if you're against me, well, you'd better start packing." The silence that followed was deafening. I'd drawn my line in the sand. Now it was time to see who would cross it. The tension in the house was palpable, a living thing that seemed to pulse through the walls. I sat at the kitchen table sipping my morning coffee when Clark stumbled in. His eyes were bloodshot, his shirt rumpled. He'd been sleeping on the couch for days. "Susan," he said, his voice hoarse, "we need to talk." I raised an eyebrow. "About what, Clark? How you finally realized the consequences of your inaction?" He flinched, but pressed on. "I've been thinking, what if we start over? Sell the house, split everything 50-50. We could both have a fresh start." I laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the quiet kitchen. "Oh, Clark, you still don't get it, do you? This house is mine now. You're either with me or against me." His face crumpled. "Please, Susan, I know I've made mistakes, but—" A crash from upstairs interrupted him. Jasper's voice rang out, followed by Fiona's sobs. Clark and I exchanged a look before rushing upstairs. We found Jasper in his old room, frantically shoving clothes into a duffel bag. Fiona sat on the bed, her pregnant belly prominent, tears streaming down her face. "What's going on?" Clark demanded. Jasper whirled on us, his eyes wild. "We're leaving. I can't take this anymore. This isn't a home. It's a prison." I felt a flicker of satisfaction, quickly replaced by a twinge of guilt as I saw Fiona's distress. But I steeled myself. They'd made their bed. Now they had to lie in it. "And where exactly do you plan to go?" I asked coolly. "You're broke, in debt, and about to have a baby. Face it, Jasper, you need us." He lunged at me, but Clark stepped between us. "Son, calm down. We can figure this out." "Figure what out?" Jasper shouted. "How she's ruined our lives, how she's turned you against me." I'd had enough. "I didn't ruin anything, Jasper. You did that all on your own. Your entitlement, your disrespect, it all led to this moment." Fiona stood up, her voice trembling. "Please, Susan, if not for us, then for the baby, your grandchild." The word hit me like a slap. Grandchild. I'd never thought of myself in those terms. For a moment I wavered. But then Clark spoke up. "Susan, honey, please, let's work this out. We can be a family again." And just like that, my resolve hardened. "Family?" I spat. "When have we ever been a family? When Jasper was calling me a fake mother, when you stood by and let it happen? No, this ends now." I turned to Jasper and Fiona. "You have 2 choices. Stay and live by my rules, or leave and fend for yourselves. But if you leave, don't expect any help from me. Ever." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the wheels turning in their heads, the desperation in their eyes. Finally, Clark spoke. "Susan, this is our home, our family. You can't just—" "Can't I?" I interrupted. "This house is in my name, Clark. I've already spoken to a lawyer. If you want to challenge me, go ahead, but I promise you, you won't win." The look of defeat on his face was almost satisfying. Almost. Jasper grabbed Fiona's hand. "Fine, we'll leave. We don't need you or your charity." As they stormed out, I felt a moment of panic. Was I really going to let them go? A pregnant woman and my foolish stepson? Clark turned to me, his eyes pleading. "Susan, please, don't do this. We can still fix things." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd married, thinking he'd be my partner, my protector. Instead, he'd been my biggest disappointment. "No, Clark," I said, my voice steady. "We can't fix this. It's too late for that. This is who I am now. The question is, can you live with it?" As I watched the conflict play out on his face, I realized this was it, the moment of truth. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd become, hung in the balance, and for the first time in years, I felt truly, terrifyingly alive. 6 months had passed since that fateful day when I'd laid down the law. The house was quiet now, almost too quiet. Clark had moved out, unable to reconcile with the woman I'd become. Jasper and Fiona were, well, I didn't know where they were, and I told myself I didn't care. I sat at my desk, poring over business plans. My old skills as a nightlife manager were coming in handy as I planned to open my own upscale lounge. It was time to reclaim my identity, to be more than just someone's wife or stepmother. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone. As I opened the door, my heart nearly stopped. Fiona stood there, her belly now swollen with late-term pregnancy. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her clothes disheveled. "Susan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need help." For a moment, I was tempted to slam the door in her face, but something in her expression gave me pause. "Where's Jasper?" I asked, my voice cool. Fiona's face crumpled. "He left, said he couldn't handle the pressure. I have nowhere else to go." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions, anger, pity, vindication. But as I looked at this young woman, so close to giving birth and so utterly alone, I realized I was at a crossroads. I could turn her away, complete my revenge by leaving them to face the consequences of their actions. Or I could be the bigger person, the one I'd always wanted to be but never had the chance. "Come in," I said finally, stepping aside. As Fiona settled on the couch, I brought her some tea. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before she spoke. "Why don't you just help us?" Fiona pleaded, her hands cradling her belly. "After everything, why?" I took a deep breath. "Because you have to earn your future, Fiona. I've reclaimed mine. Now it's your turn." She looked at me, confusion evident in her eyes. "What do you mean?" I said, choosing my words carefully, "that I'm willing to help you. But not by simply giving you money or a place to stay. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. I explained my business plans, how I was starting over at 42. If you're willing to work, to really work, I'll give you a job, a chance to build something for yourself and your child." Fiona's eyes widened. You'd do that? After everything we did to you?" I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "Yes, because that's who I choose to be now. Not a victim, not a villain, but someone who breaks the cycle." Just then, Fiona gasped, clutching her stomach. "The baby," she whispered. "I think it's coming." In that moment, all the anger, all the resentment I'd been holding on to for so long melted away. We rushed to the hospital, and hours later I found myself holding my step-grandchild, a beautiful baby girl. As I looked down at her tiny face, I realized that this was my true vindication. Not in tearing others down, but in rising above, in being the person I'd always known I could be. Clark called when he heard the news. "Susan," he said, his voice tentative. I'm proud of you for helping them when they needed it most." I felt a flutter in my chest. "Thank you, Clark. It means a lot to hear you say that." There was a pause. "Do you think maybe we could talk about us?" I looked at Fiona, sleeping peacefully with her newborn daughter, at the business plans on my bedside table, at the woman I saw reflected in the hospital room window, strong, compassionate, unbroken. "Yes," I said finally. "I think it's time we talked, really talked." As I hung up, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still hurts to heal, trust to rebuild. But for the first time in years, I felt hope. I had reclaimed my life, my identity, and in doing so, I'd found something I never expected, the power to forge a new kind of family, one built on mutual respect and understanding. This was my new beginning, and I was ready for whatever came next. I rolled over in bed, squinting at the alarm clock. 6:45 a.m. Another day, another dollar. I nudged Steve, who was still snoring softly beside me. "Hey, sleepyhead, time to get up." He groaned and pulled the covers over his head. 5 more minutes. I sighed, swinging my legs out of bed. "Suit yourself. I'm going to start the coffee." In the kitchen, I flipped on the coffee maker and leaned against the counter, rubbing my temples. The same routine, day after day. Sometimes I wondered if this was all there was to life. Wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. Steve shuffled in, his hair sticking up at odd angles. "Morning, sunshine," he mumbled, reaching for a mug. "Sleep okay?" I asked, pouring him a cup. He shrugged. "Same old. Had that dream again where I'm back at the office, drowning in paperwork." I frowned. It had been 3 months since Steve quit his job after that blow-up with his boss. He'd been restless ever since, bouncing between half-hearted job applications and vague ideas for starting his own business. "Any plans to check out that job fair today?" I ventured. Steve's jaw tightened. "I told you, those things are a waste of time. It's all entry-level crap or pyramid schemes." "I'm just saying it couldn't hurt to." The shrill ring of the phone cut me off. We both froze, staring at each other. Who would be calling at this hour? Steve reached for it. "Hello." His brow furrowed. "Mom, what's wrong?" I watched his face, a knot forming in my stomach. Steve's relationship with his parents was complicated, to put it mildly. We hardly ever heard from them unless something was wrong. "Whoa, slow down," Steve said, holding up a hand. "What do you mean? He collapsed?" My heart sank. This couldn't be good. Steve listened for a moment, his face growing pale. Okay, we'll be there as soon as we can. Just try to stay calm, all right?" He hung up, running a hand through his hair. "Steve, what happened?" He looked at me, his eyes wide with shock. "It's my dad. He had some kind of seizure this morning. They rushed him to the hospital." "Oh my God," I breathed. "Is he going to be okay?" Steve shook his head. "They don't know yet. Mom's freaking out. We need to get over there." I nodded, already moving towards the bedroom. "I'll call work, let them know I won't be in today." As I threw on clothes and packed an overnight bag, my mind raced. Steve's father, Samuel, had always seemed larger than life, stubborn and opinionated, but strong as an ox. The thought of him lying in a hospital bed, vulnerable and afraid, sent a chill through me. We were in the car within 15 minutes, Steve gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. "It'll be okay," I said softly, reaching over to squeeze his arm. "Your dad's tough. He'll pull through." Steve nodded, but didn't say anything. I knew he was thinking about all the unresolved tension between him and his father, the arguments, the disappointment, the years of strained silence. As we merged onto the highway, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia, Steve's mother. "Where are you? We need you here now." I showed it to Steve, who rolled his eyes. Classic mom, always making everything about her. I bit my lip, choosing my words carefully. "She's probably just scared. You know how she gets in a crisis." Steve snorted. "Yeah, she turns into a raging control freak. This is going to be a nightmare." As we neared the hospital exit, another text came through. This one made my blood run cold. "Doctor says it's bad. Get here ASAP. Your father is asking for you." I read it aloud, my voice shaking. Steve's face crumpled, and for a moment I thought he might cry. But he set his jaw, accelerating as we pulled off the highway. "We're coming, Dad," he muttered. "Just hold on." The hospital waiting room was a blur of harsh fluorescent lights and anxious faces. I paced back and forth, my heels clicking against the linoleum floor. Steve sat hunched in a chair, his head in his hands. "What's taking so long?" I muttered, glancing at the clock for the 100th time. As if on cue, a doctor in rumpled scrubs approached us. "Family of Samuel Thompson?" Steve shot to his feet. "That's us. How is he?" The doctor's face was grim. "I'm afraid your father's condition is quite serious. He's suffered a severe stroke, which has affected his mobility and speech." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Will he recover?" "It's too early to say for certain," the doctor replied. "But he'll need extensive rehabilitation and round-the-clock care for the foreseeable future." Steve's shoulders slumped. "For how long?" "Months at least, possibly longer." I reached for Steve's hand, squeezing it gently. "We'll figure it out," I whispered. Just then, Olivia burst through the doors, her perfectly coiffed hair a stark contrast to her tear-stained face. "Where is he? Where's my Samuel?" The doctor explained the situation again, his voice patient but weary. Olivia's wails echoed through the waiting room, drawing stares from other families. "I can't do this alone," she sobbed. "How am I supposed to take care of him?" I exchanged a look with Steve, seeing the conflict in his eyes. Before I could stop myself, I heard my own voice saying, "We'll help. We can move in for a while until things stabilize." Olivia's tears dried up instantly. "Oh, would you? That would be such a relief." Steve gaped at me. "Alexa, are you sure? What about your job?" I shrugged, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "I can work remotely for a bit. It's family, right?" The next few days passed in a whirlwind of discharge papers, medical instructions, and hasty packing. Before I knew it, we were pulling up to Steve's childhood home, a sprawling Victorian that had seen better days. Olivia met us at the door, all smiles now. "I've set up the guest room for you two. It'll be just like old times. I forced a smile, lugging our suitcases inside. The house smelled of mothballs and stale perfume, a musty reminder of happier days long past. As we settled in, the reality of our situation began to sink in. Samuel was set up in a hospital bed in the living room, a maze of tubes and monitors surrounding him. His eyes, once so full of life, now stared blankly at the ceiling. I approached him cautiously. "Hi, Samuel. It's Alexa. We're here to help out for a while." He turned his head slightly, a ghost of a smile on his lips. My heart ached at the sight. That night, as Steve and I lay in the cramped guest bed, I could feel the tension radiating off him. "I can't believe we're doing this," he muttered. I rolled over to face him. "It's only temporary. Your dad needs us." He sighed heavily. "I know. It's just being back here with Mom hovering and Dad like that. It's a lot." I reached out to stroke his cheek. "We'll get through it together." But as the days wore on, that promise became harder to keep. Olivia's constant fretting grated on my nerves, and Steve grew more withdrawn with each passing day. One afternoon, as I was changing Samuel's bedsheets, Olivia appeared in the doorway. "You're doing that all wrong," she snapped. "Here, let me show you." I gritted my teeth, stepping aside as she fussed with the linens. I was managing just fine. Olivia shot me a withering look. "This isn't some hotel you're tidying up. This is my husband's sickbed. It needs to be perfect." I bit back a retort, reminding myself that she was under stress. But as I watched her meticulously smooth out every wrinkle, a sinking feeling settled in my stomach. This wasn't going to be as simple as I'd hoped. We weren't just here to help with Samuel's care. We were stepping into a minefield of old resentments and unspoken expectations. As I left the room, I overheard Olivia murmuring to Samuel, "Don't worry. Darling, I won't let anyone come between us, not even your son's little wife." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. What had I gotten us into? The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., jolting me awake. I groaned, fumbling to silence it before it woke Steve. Not that he'd notice. He'd been sleeping like the dead lately, worn out from the stress of our new living situation. I dragged myself out of bed, careful not to disturb him. The house was quiet as I made my way downstairs, the only sound the soft hum of Samuel's medical equipment. "Good morning, Samuel," I whispered, checking his vitals and adjusting his pillows. His eyes fluttered open, a faint smile crossing his lips. It wasn't much, but it was enough to warm my heart. By 6 a.m. I was at the kitchen table, laptop open, trying to focus on work emails. The words swam before my bleary eyes. How long could I keep this up? A crash from upstairs made me jump. Olivia's shrill voice echoed through the house. "Steve, where are my good china plates?" I sighed, closing my laptop. So much for getting any work done. I found Olivia in the dining room, surrounded by open cabinets and drawers. "Is everything okay?" I asked cautiously. She whirled on me, eyes blazing. "No, it is not okay. I can't find anything in this house anymore. What have you done with my things?" "I haven't touched your china, Olivia. Maybe Steve knows where." "Don't you dare blame this on my son," she snapped. "Ever since you two moved in, everything's been in disarray. I can't even find comfort in my own home anymore." I bit my tongue, reminding myself that she was under stress. "I'm sorry you're feeling overwhelmed. How about I help you look?" Olivia's face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she might cry. But then her expression hardened. "Never mind. I'll find them myself. Don't you have work to do or something?" I retreated to the kitchen, my hands shaking as I poured myself another cup of coffee. The day had barely begun, and I was already exhausted. Steve shuffled in, looking rumpled and bleary-eyed. "What's all the commotion?" "Your mother can't find her china," I said, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "Maybe you could help her look?" He shrugged, reaching for the coffee pot. "She's always losing things. She'll calm down eventually." I stared at him, incredulous. "That's it? You're not going to say anything to her about how she spoke to me?" Steve's eyes narrowed. "What do you want me to do, Alexa? Pick a fight with my own mother?" "I want you to stand up for me," I hissed, mindful of Olivia in the next room. "I'm killing myself trying to keep everything together here, and all I get is criticism and blame." Steve slammed his mug down on the counter. "You think this is easy for me? Being back in this house, seeing Dad like that every day? I'm doing the best I can." "Are you?" I shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, It looks like you're letting your mother walk all over both of us while you hide in your childhood bedroom." The hurt in Steve's eyes made me instantly regret my words. But before I could apologize, Olivia burst into the kitchen. "I found them," she announced triumphantly, brandishing a stack of plates. "No thanks to either of you." Steve plastered on a smile. "That's great, Mom. See? I told you they'd turn up." I watched in disbelief as he fawned over her, completely ignoring our argument. It was like I'd ceased to exist. As I turned back to my neglected work, a notification popped up on my phone. A message from my boss. "Need to discuss your remote work situation. Performance is slipping. Call ASAP." My stomach dropped. This was the last thing I needed. I glanced at Samuel in the living room, then back at Steve and Olivia, now chatting amiably over breakfast as if nothing had happened. The weight of it all, the caregiving, the work stress, the family tension, threatened to crush me. Something had to give, and I had a sinking feeling it was going to be me. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Pots and pans cluttered the counters, and a thin layer of flour coated every surface. I'd been up since dawn, determined to prepare a special dinner for Samuel, something to lift his spirits and show everyone I was pulling my weight. As I stirred the soup simmering on the stove, Olivia's voice cut through the air like a knife. "What in heaven's name are you doing to my kitchen?" I turned to find her standing in the doorway, her face a mask of horror. "I'm making dinner," I explained, trying to keep my voice steady. "I thought it would be nice, too." "Nice?" Olivia interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "You call this mess nice? And what does that smell?" I sniffed the air, panic rising in my chest as I detected a faint burning odor. "Oh no, the bread!" I rushed to the oven, yanking it open. A plume of smoke billowed out, setting off the smoke alarm. As I fanned frantically at the air, Steve burst into the kitchen. "What's going on?" he demanded, taking in the chaos. Olivia wasted no time in filling him in. "Your wife is destroying my kitchen. That's what's going on. Look at this mess. And now she's nearly set the house on fire." I felt my cheeks burning with shame and frustration. "I was just trying to help," I said weakly. Steve's expression hardened. "Alexa, what were you thinking? You know Mom likes things done a certain way." His words stung like a slap. "I was thinking about your father," I shot back. "About doing something nice for him. But clearly that's not a priority around here." Olivia gasped dramatically. "How dare you? Everything we do is for Samuel's benefit. You have no idea what it's like to truly care for family." I opened my mouth to argue, but Steve cut me off. "That's enough, both of you. Alexa, just clean this up, okay? Mom and I will order takeout." As they left the kitchen, I heard Olivia's stage whisper, "I don't know why you put up with her, Stephen. She clearly doesn't understand our family's needs." Tears pricked at my eyes as I surveyed the ruined kitchen. How had things gone so wrong? Hours later, after scrubbing every inch of the kitchen and choking down a few bites of lukewarm Chinese food, I retreated to Samuel's room. He was awake, his eyes following me as I checked his monitors. "I heard quite a commotion earlier," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I sighed, sinking into the chair beside his bed. "I'm sorry about that. I was trying to make you a nice dinner, but, well, it didn't go as planned." Samuel's hand inched towards mine, and I took it gently. "You're doing your best," he said. "That's more than I can say for some people in this house." I looked at him sharply, surprised by the bitterness in his tone, but before I could ask what he meant, Steve appeared in the doorway. "Alexa, can I talk to you for a minute?" In the hallway, Steve ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "Listen, I've been thinking. Maybe it would be better if you went back to work at the office." I stared at him, stunned. "What? But what about your dad? Who's going to take care of him during the day?" Steve shrugged. "Mom says she can handle it. And let's face it, things haven't been going great with you working from home." The implication hung heavy in the air. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't family. "So that's it," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Your mother complains, and you're ready to ship me off?" "It's not like that," Steve protested weakly. "I just think it might be better for everyone if..." "If what, Steve? If I'm out of the way? If your mother can have free rein to criticize and control everything without me around to mess it up?" Steve's silence was all the answer I needed. In that moment, something inside me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. I'll go back to the office, but don't think for a second that this solves anything. As I stormed off to pack my work bag, I could feel the weight of a decision pressing down on me. This couldn't go on. Something had to change, and soon. The question was, did I have the strength to make that change myself? The office felt like a sanctuary after weeks of tension at Steve's parents' house. I threw myself into work, grateful for the distraction. But as Friday afternoon rolled around, a familiar dread settled in my stomach. Another weekend of walking on eggshells awaited me. I arrived home to find Olivia and Steve huddled in the kitchen, speaking in hushed tones. They fell silent as I entered, their faces a mix of guilt and annoyance. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my bag. Olivia plastered on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, nothing, dear. Steve and I were just discussing our plans for tomorrow. We're thinking of taking a little day trip to the lake." I blinked in surprise. "But what about Samuel? He needs constant care." Steve cleared his throat. "Well, we were hoping you might be able to stay with him, just for the day." The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. They were leaving me behind again. "So let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You want me to give up my weekend to care for your father while you two go off and have fun?" Olivia's smile faltered. "Now, Alexa, don't be dramatic. It's just one day. And you're so good with Samuel. He responds to you better than anyone." I turned to Steve, searching his face for any sign of support, but he just looked away, avoiding my gaze. "Fine," I said, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. "Go. Enjoy your day trip." As they left the next morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being taken advantage of. But as I settled in beside Samuel's bed, his warm smile melted some of my resentment. "They gone?" he asked, his voice weak but clear. I nodded, adjusting his pillows. "Yep, it's just you and me today." Samuel's eyes twinkled with mischief. "Good, now we can have some real fun." Over the next few hours, I discovered a side of Samuel I'd never seen before. We played cards. He cheated shamelessly, watched old movies, and even managed a short walk in the garden. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly relaxed. As the sun began to set, Samuel grew quiet. "Alexa," he said, his tone serious, "I need to tell you something." I leaned in, concerned by the urgency in his voice. "What is it?" "Things aren't what they seem in this family," he whispered. "Olivia, she's not the saint she pretends to be, and Steve, he's always been weak, too easily swayed by her." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" But before Samuel could elaborate, we heard the front door open. Olivia's shrill voice called out, "We're home!" Samuel gripped my hand, his eyes pleading. "Be careful, Alexa. Don't trust." "There you are!" Olivia bustled into the room, cutting him off. "How was everything?" I forced a smile, my mind reeling from Samuel's cryptic warning. "Fine, we had a nice day." That night, as Steve and I prepared for bed, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was missing something crucial. "How was the lake?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. Steve shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "It was all right. Mom enjoyed it." "I bet she did," I muttered. Steve's head snapped up. "What's that supposed to mean?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Steve, we need to talk. About your mother, about this whole situation. Something isn't right here." His face hardened. "Don't start, Alexa. I'm tired of your complaints about my family." "This isn't just about me," I exploded. "Your father said something today. He warned me." "Enough!" Steve shouted, startling us both. "Dad's mind isn't what it used to be. You can't take anything he says seriously." As Steve stormed out of the room, I sank onto the bed, my head spinning. Samuel's words echoed in my mind, "Things aren't what they seem." In that moment, I made a decision. I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. Something was rotten in this family, and I was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant risking everything I thought I knew about my marriage and my place in this household. The house was eerily quiet as I crept down the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. It was just past midnight, and I knew this might be my only chance to uncover the truth Samuel had hinted at. I found him awake, his eyes gleaming in the dim light of his bedside lamp. "I've been waiting for you," he whispered. "Samuel," I said, settling into the chair beside him. "Please tell me what's really going on here." He took a shaky breath. "It's been going on for years, the neglect, the manipulation. Olivia, she's not the devoted wife she pretends to be." As Samuel spoke, a horrifying picture began to emerge. Years of emotional abuse, financial manipulation, and outright neglect. Olivia had systematically isolated Samuel from friends and family, all while presenting a perfect facade to the outside world. But Steve, I protested weakly. Surely he wouldn't. Samuel's eyes filled with tears. My son, he's always been under her thumb, too weak to stand up to her, too afraid to lose her approval. He's known all along, Alexa. He's been complicit in all of it. My world tilted on its axis. Everything I thought I knew about my husband, about this family, came crashing down around me. I need proof, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If I'm going to confront them, I need evidence. Samuel nodded towards his nightstand. Bottom drawer. There's a false bottom. You'll find everything you need there. With trembling hands, I retrieved a stack of documents, bank statements, medical records, even handwritten notes detailing years of mistreatment. As I leafed through them, bile rose in my throat. A floorboard creaked behind me. I whirled around to find Olivia standing in the doorway, her face a mask of fury. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. I stood, clutching the papers to my chest. "I know everything, Olivia. The truth about how you've treated Samuel all these years." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything. You're just a foolish girl who doesn't understand how families work." "Families don't do this," I shot back, gesturing to the damning evidence in my hands. "This isn't love, it's abuse." Olivia's composure cracked. "How dare you? After everything we've done for you, letting you into our home." "Letting me?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "You mean using me as a convenient caretaker while you and Steve go off and play happy family?" Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced Steve's arrival. He looked between us, confusion etched on his face. "What's going on?" I turned to him, my heart breaking. "Tell him, Steve. Tell him how you've known about your mother's treatment of your father all along, how you've stood by and let it happen." Steve's face drained of color. "Alexa, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice ice-cold. "You're a coward, Steve. You've always been a coward." Olivia lunged for the papers, but I dodged her grasp. "It's over," I declared. "I'm taking these to the authorities. Samuel deserves justice, and you both deserve to face the consequences of your actions." Steve stepped towards me, his eyes pleading. "Alexa, please, we can work this out. Give me the papers and we'll talk about it." For a moment I wavered. This was my husband, the man I'd promised to love and support. But as I looked at Samuel, frail and vulnerable in his bed, I knew there was only one right choice. "No," I said firmly. "I'm done talking. I'm done pretending. This ends now." As I pushed past them towards the door, Olivia's shrill voice rang out. "If you walk out that door, you'll regret it. You'll lose everything." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Without turning back, I replied, "No, Olivia. I've already lost everything, but I'm about to gain something far more valuable, my self-respect." With that, I stepped out into the night, leaving behind the shattered remains of the life I thought I knew. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months I felt a glimmer of hope. Whatever came next, I knew I was finally doing the right thing. The morning sun filtered through the dingy motel curtains, casting a sickly glow over the room. I hadn't slept, my mind racing with the events of the past 24 hours. The damning documents lay scattered across the bed, a testament to years of deceit and manipulation. A sharp knock at the door made me jump. "Alexa? It's me. Please, we need to talk." Steve's voice muffled but unmistakable. I hesitated, my hand on the doorknob. Against my better judgment, I opened it. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside wordlessly, watching as he surveyed the cramped room. "You left so suddenly," he began. "Mom's beside herself, and Dad, he's asking for you." A pang of guilt shot through me. "How is he?" "Not good," Steve admitted. "The stress of all this, it's taken a toll." I crossed my arms. "And whose fault is that?" Steve's face crumpled. "I know I've made mistakes, Alexa, but you have to understand, it's complicated. That family is—" "Don't you dare," I interrupted, my voice shaking with anger. "Don't you dare use family as an excuse for what you've done." He reached for me, but I stepped back. "Please, just come home. We can work this out. Dad needs you." For a moment, I wavered. The thought of Samuel alone in that house, at the mercy of Olivia's neglect, made my stomach churn. But then I remembered the years of abuse, the lies, the manipulation. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not coming back. In fact, I'm taking Samuel with me." Steve's eyes widened. "What? You can't do that." "Watch me," I shot back. I've already spoken to Adult Protective Services. They're investigating the situation as we speak. The color drained from Steve's face. You reported us? Alexa, do you have any idea what you've done? A knock at the door interrupted us. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. Alexa Thompson? One asked. I nodded. We need you to come with us. There's been a complaint filed against you. My heart raced. What complaint? The officer looked uncomfortable. Theft and elder abuse. Mrs. Olivia Thompson claims you've stolen valuable documents and manipulated her husband. I laughed bitterly. Of course she does. Well, officers, I have evidence that proves otherwise. As I gathered the documents, Steve's phone rang. His face paled as he listened. It's the hospital, he whispered. Dad's had another stroke. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. In that moment, everything else fell away. The accusations, the family drama, even my own anger. All that mattered was getting to Samuel. At the hospital, we found Olivia already there, her face a mask of grief and fury. You, she hissed when she saw me. This is all your fault. Before I could respond, a doctor approached. Mrs. Thompson, I'm afraid I have some bad news. The next few hours passed in a blur. Samuel, slipping away despite the doctor's best efforts. Steve, torn between grief and guilt. Olivia, alternating between wailing dramatically and shooting venomous glares in my direction. As dawn broke, I found myself alone in Samuel's room. His breathing was labored, his skin ashen. I took his hand, tears streaming down my face. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I tried to help, but I made everything worse. His eyes fluttered open, focusing on me with surprising clarity. No, he rasped. You did right. With trembling hands, he pressed something into my palm, a small key. Safe deposit box, he managed. Truth. There. Before I could ask what he meant, his eyes closed and the monitors began to wail. As doctors and nurses rushed in, I stumbled into the hallway, clutching the key. Steve and Olivia's accusatory glares bore into me, but I barely noticed. My mind was reeling. What truth was Samuel talking about? What else could possibly be hidden in that safe deposit box? And how was I going to access it with theft charges hanging over my head? As the chaos swirled around me, one thing became crystal clear. This was far from over. In fact, it felt like the real battle was just beginning. 1 year to the day after Samuel's funeral, I stood outside the courthouse, my heart pounding. The last 12 months had been a whirlwind of legal battles, accusations, and painful revelations. But today, finally, it would all come to an end. I pushed open the heavy doors, bracing myself for what lay ahead. The courtroom was packed, but I only had eyes for 2 people, Steve and Olivia, huddled together at the defendant's table. As I took my seat, Steve's eyes met mine. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved, confused, scared, desperate. But then Olivia whispered something in his ear, and his face hardened. The judge entered, and a hush fell over the room. In the matter of the estate of Samuel Thompson, she began, we are here to render a final decision. I clutched the edge of my seat, thinking back to that day in the bank when I'd finally accessed Samuel's safe deposit box. The contents had been shocking, detailed records of Olivia's financial manipulations, evidence of Steve's complicity, and a heartbreaking letter from Samuel explaining it all. The judge's voice cut through my memories. After careful review of all evidence presented, this court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Alexa Thompson. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Olivia's face contorted in fury, while Steve looked like he'd been punched in the gut. Furthermore, the judge continued, the court orders that all assets of the deceased, Samuel Thompson, be liquidated to pay outstanding debts and medical expenses. Any remaining funds will be donated to a charity of Mrs. Alexa Thompson's choosing, as per the deceased's final wishes. Olivia leapt to her feet. This is outrageous. That money belongs to us. Steve, do something. But Steve just sat there, shell-shocked. The realization was clearly sinking in. There was no inheritance. No reward for years of neglect and manipulation, just a mountain of debt and the bitter taste of karma. As the courtroom erupted into chaos, I slipped out quietly. Outside, the sun was shining, a warm breeze carrying the scent of new beginnings. My lawyer caught up with me on the steps. Congratulations, Alexa. It's finally over. I nodded, a weight lifting from my shoulders. Yes, it is. As I walked away from the courthouse, I thought about Samuel, about the quiet strength he'd shown in his final days, the trust he'd placed in me to see justice done. I hoped, wherever he was, he could rest easy now. My phone buzzed, a text from Steve. "Can we talk? Please?" For a moment, my finger hovered over the reply button, but then I remembered all the pain, all the betrayal. With a deep breath, I deleted the message and blocked his number. Some bridges, once burned, should stay that way. I walked to a nearby park, settling on a bench to watch families enjoy the summer day. An older woman caught my eye, reminding me of the person I might have become if I'd stayed trapped in that toxic situation. But I hadn't. I'd found the strength to stand up for what was right, to fight for justice, not just for Samuel, but for myself. As the sun began to set, I pulled out my phone one last time. I had one more call to make, to the domestic violence shelter I'd chosen for Samuel's donation. It felt right, turning the pain of the past into hope for the future. "Hello," I said when they answered. "I'd like to make a donation." As I spoke with the grateful volunteer, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The past year had been the hardest of my life, but I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and finally free. Tomorrow, I'd start my new job at a nonprofit focused on elder care advocacy. It felt like the perfect way to honor Samuel's memory and use my experiences for good. As twilight settled over the park, I stood up, ready to head home, not to a house filled with resentment and lies, but to my own apartment, my own space, my own life. I'd lost a husband and a family I thought I knew, but I'd gained something far more valuable: self-respect, inner strength, and the knowledge that I could face whatever challenges life threw my way. With a smile on my face and hope in my heart, I walked towards my future, leaving the shadows of the past behind me. I stood frozen in the doorway of our bedroom, my hand still gripping the doorknob. The scene before me felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Paul, my husband of 15 years, was tangled in our sheets with a woman I'd never seen before. They scrambled to cover themselves, but the damage was done. "Rebecca," Paul's voice cracked. I can explain." I found my voice, though it came out as a whisper. "Get out." The woman, young, blonde, and beautiful in all the ways I used to be, grabbed her clothes and bolted past me. I didn't even look at her. My eyes were locked on Paul. He stumbled out of bed, reaching for his discarded pants. "Honey, please, it's not what you think." A laugh bubbled up from my chest, bitter and hollow. "Really? Because I think I just caught you in bed with another woman. Please, enlighten me on what I'm misunderstanding here." Paul's face crumpled. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen." "How long?" I demanded, my voice gaining strength. He hesitated, and I knew. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was an affair. 6 months, he admitted quietly. The world tilted on its axis. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of betrayal. I thought of all the late nights at the office, the mysterious text messages, the sudden interest in his appearance. How could I have been so blind? "Who is she?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Paul sighed, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Her name is Emily. She's an intern at the firm." Of course, young, impressionable, probably hanging on his every word. I felt sick. "The boys," I said suddenly, panic rising in my chest. "Where are Alex and Todd?" "They're at my mother's," Paul assured me. "They're safe." I nodded, relieved but also furious that he'd planned this so carefully. "You need to leave," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Now." Paul stepped towards me, his eyes pleading. "Rebecca, please. We can work this out. I love you." I held up a hand, stopping him in his tracks. "Don't. Just don't. I can't even look at you right now." He nodded, defeated, and gathered the rest of his things. As he passed me in the doorway, he paused. "I'll call you tomorrow. We can talk then." I didn't respond, didn't even watch him go. I just stood there, staring at the rumpled sheets of our marriage bed, thus feeling my world crumble around me. The sound of the front door closing snapped me out of my daze. I moved on autopilot, stripping the bed and shoving the sheets into the washing machine. I cranked the water temperature as high as it would go, as if I could somehow scald away the memory of what I'd seen. As the machine hummed to life, I sank to the floor of the laundry room and finally let the tears come. How could he do this to me? To our family? 15 years of marriage, 2 beautiful boys, and he threw it all away for some young thing from the office. My phone buzzed in my pocket. With shaking hands, I pulled it out to see a text from Mildred, my mother-in-law. "The boys are asking for you. When should I bring them home?" Reality came crashing back. Alex and Todd. My babies. How was I going to tell them that their father had destroyed our family? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I couldn't fall apart now. My boys needed me to be strong. I typed out a reply, "I'll pick them up in an hour. Thank you for watching them." As I hit send, another text came through. This one from Paul. "I'm so sorry. Please, let's talk tomorrow. I love you." I stared at the words until they blurred, then deleted the message without responding. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and with it the fight of my life. But tonight I had 2 little boys who needed their mother. I pushed myself to my feet, wiped my eyes, and headed for the shower. I had an hour to pull myself together and figure out how to face Mildred without falling apart or revealing the truth. One step at a time, I told myself. That's how we'll get through this. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, waiting for the judge's decision. Paul's eyes bored into me from across the aisle, but I refused to look at him. Instead, I focused on my lawyer's reassuring smile. "In the matter of custody for Alex and Todd Thompson," the judge began, "I hereby grant full custody to Rebecca Thompson." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Paul's face contorted with anger, and I knew this battle was far from over. Outside the courthouse, Paul cornered me. "This isn't fair, Rebecca. They're my sons, too." I stood my ground. "You should have thought about that before you threw our family away for Emily." His jaw clenched. "I'll appeal. You can't keep them from me." "I'm not keeping them from you, Paul. You'll have visitation, but they need stability right now, and that's something I can provide." As Paul stormed off, my lawyer approached. "Congratulations, Rebecca. It's a good outcome." I nodded, feeling hollow. "Thanks, Sarah. What happens now?" She squeezed my arm. "Go home. Be with your boys. The rest can wait." The drive home felt surreal. I'd won, but it didn't feel like a victory. How do you celebrate tearing your family apart? As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Alex and Todd peering out the window. My heart clenched. How was I going to explain this to them? I barely made it through the door before they bombarded me with questions. "Mom, what happened?" Alex demanded, his voice cracking with pubescent worry. Todd, always more sensitive, clung to my side. "Are we going to live with Dad?" I took a deep breath, guiding them to the couch. "Let's sit down, boys. We need to talk." Their faces were a mix of fear and confusion as I explained the custody arrangement. Alex, at 12, understood more than I wished he did. Todd, just 10, seemed lost. "But why can't we live with Dad, too?" Todd asked, his lower lip trembling. I pulled him close. "Oh, sweetie, you'll still see your dad. He'll visit, and you'll spend weekends with him. But for now, this is what's best for everyone." Alex's eyes narrowed. "It's because of that woman, isn't it? The one Dad's been seeing?" My heart sank. Of course, Alex had picked up on more than he let on. "It's complicated, honey. But yes, that's part of it. I hate her," Alex spat. "I hate Dad for doing this to us." I grabbed his hand. "Alex, listen to me. It's okay to be angry, but hate isn't the answer. Your dad made a mistake, but he still loves you both very much." Alex pulled away, storming off to his room. Todd burst into tears, burying his face in my shirt. As I held my younger son, trying to soothe him, I heard a crash from upstairs. Alex was letting out his frustration the only way he knew how. I closed my eyes, fighting back my own tears. This was going to be harder than I thought. The next few days were a blur of tears, tantrums, and tense silences. I tried to keep things as normal as possible, but nothing felt normal anymore. It was a week after the custody hearing when Paul came for his first visit. The boys were excited to see him, but I could sense their confusion and hurt. As they drove away, I felt a mix of relief and anxiety. For the first time in days, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I wandered from room to room, straightening toys and folding laundry, anything to keep my hands busy. But as I passed Alex's room, something caught my eye. A crumpled piece of paper lay half hidden under his bed. I shouldn't have looked, but curiosity got the better of me. It was a letter addressed to Emily. My blood ran cold as I read the angry, hurt words my son had poured onto the page. Threats, accusations, and a pain so raw it took my breath away. I sank onto Alex's bed, the letter clutched in my trembling hands. This was worse than I'd imagined. My son was planning revenge on the woman who'd torn apart his family. As I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of my old life, I realized the real battle was just beginning. Winning custody was one thing. Healing my children's broken hearts, that would be the fight of my life. I stood on Mildred's porch, my finger hovering over the doorbell. Part of me wanted to turn and run, but I needed answers. I needed to understand how my mother-in-law could support Paul's betrayal. The door swung open before I could ring. Mildred's eyes narrowed. "Rebecca, what a surprise." "We need to talk, Mildred," I said, pushing past her into the house. She sighed, closing the door. "I suppose we do. Tea?" "No, thank you. I want to know why you're defending Paul after what he's done." Mildred's face hardened. "Marriage isn't always simple, Rebecca. Sometimes men stray. It's how we handle it that matters." I felt my blood boil. "Handle it? He had an affair, Mildred. He destroyed our family." Perhaps if you'd been more attentive." "Don't you dare blame this on me," I snapped. "Paul made his choice." Mildred sat primly on her floral sofa. "Paul tells me he's very happy with Emily. She understands him in ways you never could." The casual cruelty of her words stung. "And what about your grandsons? Do they understand why their father abandoned them?" A flicker of emotion crossed Mildred's face. "Alex is handling it quite well, actually. He's such a strong boy." "And Todd?" I pressed. Mildred waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, he'll adjust. Children are resilient." I stared at her, realization dawning. "You're playing favorites. You always have, haven't you?" "I don't know what you mean," Mildred sniffed. "Alex is the golden child and Todd's just an afterthought, just like Paul was your favorite and his brother could never measure up." Mildred's eyes flashed. "Now, see here." "No, you see here," I interrupted. "Your outdated ideas about family and loyalty are toxic. You're hurting my children with your bias." "I would never hurt those boys," Mildred protested. "But you are," I insisted. "By supporting Paul's affair, by favoring Alex, you're teaching them that betrayal is acceptable and that love is conditional." Mildred stood, her face flushed with anger. "I think you should leave, Rebecca." "Gladly," I said, moving towards the door. "But know this, I won't let you or Paul or anyone else hurt my children. If I have to protect them from their own family, so be it." As I reached for the doorknob, Mildred's voice stopped me. "He was right about you, you know. You're too rigid, too unforgiving. No wonder he strayed." I turned, my voice low and dangerous. "And you're a hypocrite, Mildred, preaching about family values while condoning adultery. I feel sorry for you." I slammed the door behind me, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my car keys. The confrontation had gone worse than I'd imagined, but at least now I knew where everyone stood. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from Paul. "Mom called. Said you upset her. What's going on?" I ignored it, focusing on the road ahead. Let him stew. Let him wonder. When I got home, I found Alex and Todd huddled on the couch, whispering intently. They fell silent as I entered, guilt written across their faces. "What's going on, boys?" I asked, my earlier anger fading to concern. Alex spoke first, his voice trembling. "We heard you and Dad fighting on the phone last night. About us." My heart sank. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry you heard that." Todd's lower lip quivered. "Are you and Dad going to keep fighting forever?" I sat between them, pulling them close. "Your dad and I are going through a tough time right now, but I promise you, we both love you more than anything." Alex pulled away, his eyes hard. "If Dad loves us, why did he leave? Why does he spend all his time with Emily?" The bitterness in his voice broke my heart. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, Alex. Big ones. But that doesn't mean they stop loving their children." "I hate him," Alex muttered. "I hate all of them." As I held my sons, trying to soothe their pain, I realized the true cost of Paul's betrayal. It wasn't just our marriage he'd destroyed. It was our children's trust, their sense of security. In that moment, I made a silent vow. No matter what it took, I would protect my boys. From Paul's fickleness, from Mildred's favoritism, from the cruelty of a world that had turned their lives upside down. Even if it meant standing alone against my entire former family, I would do it. For Alex, for Todd, for the three of us, united against the storm. The tension in the air was palpable as I faced Mildred across her immaculate living room. Our earlier confrontation had only been the beginning. Now, with Paul by her side, I felt like I was facing a united front of betrayal. "Rebecca," Paul began, his voice strained, "Mom tells me you've been making some accusations." I laughed bitterly. "Accusations? You mean stating facts about your affair and her blatant favoritism?" Mildred's eyes narrowed. "Now, see here, young lady." "No, you see here," I snapped, my patience finally breaking. Now, I've had enough of your manipulations and your outdated ideas about family. You're poisoning my children with your bias. Paul stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Let's all calm down. We're here to talk about the boys, remember? I turned my fury on him. Oh, now you want to talk about the boys? Where was this concern when you were sneaking around with Emily? That's different, Paul muttered, but I could see the guilt in his eyes. Mildred interjected, her voice syrupy sweet. We're just concerned about Alex, dear. He seems to be struggling more than Todd with the situation. The implication in her words was clear. I felt my blood boil. You mean he's struggling more because you're filling his head with lies and making him choose sides? We would never, Paul began, but I cut him off. Save it, Paul. I've seen how you both fawn over Alex and barely acknowledge Todd. It stops now. Mildred's facade cracked, her true colors showing through. Well, perhaps if Todd weren't so sensitive. He's sensitive because his father abandoned him and his grandmother treats him like a second-class citizen, I shouted, my composure finally shattering. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. Paul looked stricken, while Mildred's face had gone pale with anger. I think, Mildred said slowly, her voice trembling with rage, that it's time for you to leave, Rebecca. I stood my ground. No, I don't think so. Not until we settle this once and for all. Paul stepped between us, ever the peacemaker. Rebecca, please, let's not do this in front of the boys. As if on cue, I heard a small gasp from the hallway. We all turned to see Alex and Todd standing there, their eyes wide with shock and hurt. Mom? Todd's voice quavered. What's going on? Alex, always quicker to anger, glared at all of us. Why are you always fighting? I hate this! The sight of my boys caught in the crossfire of adult drama broke my heart. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what came next. Boys, go pack your bags. We're leaving. What? Paul exclaimed. Rebecca, you can't just take them. I turned to him, my voice steady and cold. Watch me. I won't let them be pawns in this toxic game anymore. Mildred sputtered, her face red with indignation. Now see here, you can't. I can, and I will. I interrupted. I'm severing all ties with this family, Mildred. You, Paul, all of it. My boys deserve better than this poison. As Alex and Todd hesitantly moved to pack, I faced Paul and Mildred one last time. I'll have my lawyer contact you about visitation, Paul. But know this, if either of you try to turn my children against each other or against me again, I'll fight you with everything I have. Paul's face crumpled. Rebecca, please, we can work this out. But I was done listening, done compromising, done watching my children suffer. As I ushered Alex and Todd out to the car, ignoring Mildred's shrill protests and Paul's pleading, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The road ahead would be hard, but at least now we could heal without the constant interference of toxic influences. In the rearview mirror, I watched Paul and Mildred grow smaller, standing on the porch of a house that no longer felt like home. A chapter of our lives was ending, but I was determined to write a better story for my boys, no matter the cost. The weeks following our dramatic exit from Mildred's house were a blur of lawyers, counseling sessions, and sleepless nights. I thought we were making progress, slowly healing as a family of 3. But I couldn't have been more wrong. It was a crisp autumn morning when my world shattered again. Alex's bedroom door slammed, the sound echoing through our small apartment. I can't do this anymore, he shouted. Storming into the living room with a packed duffel bag, I jumped up from the couch, my heart racing. Alex, honey, what's going on? His face was a mask of anger and hurt. I'm going to live with Dad and Grandma. At least they understand me. Todd appeared in the hallway, his eyes wide with fear. Alex, please don't go, he pleaded. But Alex ignored him, turning to me with accusing eyes. You're always saying how Dad and Grandma are toxic, but you're the one tearing us apart. I hate it here. His words cut deep, but I fought to stay calm. Alex, please, let's talk about this. Whatever's bothering you, we can work it out. He shook his head violently. No, we can't. You don't listen. You don't understand. Dad says I can stay with him and Emily if I want to. The mention of Emily's name sent a jolt of anger through me. Your father had no right to make that offer without consulting me. See? Alex exploded. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're always controlling everything. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. Alex, I know this is hard, but running away isn't the answer. Please, just sit down and talk to me. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, but then his face hardened. No, I've made up my mind. Dad's waiting outside. My blood ran cold. What? Paul's here? As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Alex yanked it open, revealing Paul standing there with a smug smile. Hello, Rebecca, he said smoothly. I believe our son has made his decision. I felt like I was drowning. Paul, you can't do this. We have a custody agreement, he shrugged. Alex is old enough to choose where he wants to live. Isn't that right, son? Alex nodded, avoiding my gaze. I want to go with Dad. Todd, who had been silent until now, suddenly burst into tears. Alex, please don't leave us. The sight of my younger son's distress snapped me out of my shock. I knelt down, pulling Todd into a tight hug. It's okay, sweetie. It's going to be okay. Over Todd's shoulder, I locked eyes with Paul. This isn't over, I said, my voice low and dangerous. Paul's smile never wavered. We'll let the courts decide that, Rebecca. Come on, Alex. As they turned to leave, I made one last desperate plea. Alex, please, think about what you're doing. Think about your brother. For a brief moment, Alex hesitated. He looked back at Todd, still crying in my arms, and I saw a flicker of doubt cross his face. But then Mildred appeared in the hallway, her arms outstretched. Come along, dear, she cooed. Grandma's got your favorite dinner waiting. And just like that, the moment was gone. Alex's face hardened again, and he walked out without another word. As the door closed behind them, I felt something inside me break. Todd's sobs echoed in the suddenly empty apartment, and I held him tighter, my own tears finally falling. In that moment of raw pain and betrayal, I made a decision. This wasn't just about me anymore. It wasn't even just about Alex. I had to protect Todd from the manipulation and favoritism that had torn our family apart. I gently pulled back, looking into Todd's tear-stained face. Pack a bag, sweetheart, I said softly. We're going on a little trip. Todd sniffled, confusion replacing some of the hurt in his eyes. Where are we going, Mom? I managed a small smile, my resolve strengthening. Somewhere new. Somewhere we can start fresh. Just the two of us. As Todd went to pack, I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over the contact list. It was time to call in some favors, to find a way out of this toxic situation. For Todd's sake and for my own, I had to be strong. I had to fight back. The battle lines were drawn, and this time I was ready for war. The small town of Millbrook felt like a world away from the chaos we'd left behind in Chicago. As I watched Todd chase fireflies in our new backyard, I allowed myself a moment of hope. Maybe here we could finally heal. Mom, look, Todd called, his face lit up with a joy I hadn't seen in months. I caught one. I smiled, pushing away the lingering sadness. That's wonderful, sweetie. Why don't you let it go now? Remember, we're just visiting their world. As Todd released the firefly, my phone buzzed. My heart sank as I saw Paul's name on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered, Rebecca, where the hell are you? Paul's voice crackled with anger. You can't just disappear with my son. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Our son, Paul, and I had every right to move. Check with my lawyer if you don't believe me. This isn't over, he snarled. Alex is devastated. How could you abandon him like this? His words hit like a physical blow. I didn't abandon anyone, Paul. Alex chose to stay with you and your mother. I'm protecting Todd from your toxic influence. The line went silent for a moment. When Paul spoke again, his voice was dangerously calm. You've gone too far this time, Rebecca. I'm coming to get Todd. Both my sons belong with me. Fear gripped my heart. You stay away from us, Paul. I mean it. I hung up, my hands shaking. Todd looked up at me, worry creasing his young face. Mom? What's wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing, sweetie. Let's go inside, okay? It's getting late. That night, after Todd was asleep, I paced our small living room, my mind racing. I knew Paul wouldn't give up easily, and with Mildred's money and influence behind him, he could make things very difficult for us. A soft knock at the door made me jump. It was nearly midnight. Who could be here at this hour? Cautiously, I approached the door, peering through the peephole. My breath caught in my throat. It was Alex. I flung the door open. Alex? What are you doing here? How did you find us? He stood there looking lost and so much older than his 12 years. Mom, I made a mistake. Can I come in? As Alex stepped inside, the floodgates opened. He told me everything. How Mildred had been poisoning him against me, how Paul and Emily's relationship was already falling apart, how he missed Todd and regretted his decision to stay behind. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he sobbed, collapsing into my arms. "I should never have left." I held him tight, my own tears falling. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're here now. That's all that matters." But our reunion was short-lived. Headlights swept across the living room window, and a car door slammed outside. "Alex!" Paul's voice boomed. "I know you're in there. Come out now." Alex stiffened in my arms. "Dad followed me," he whispered, panic in his eyes. I stood, pushing Alex behind me. "Stay here. I'll handle this." Opening the door, I faced Paul, who stood on our porch looking furious. "You've gone too far, Rebecca," he growled. "I'm taking both boys home now." "They are home," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "This ends here, Paul. No more manipulation, no more games." Paul's face contorted with rage. He took a step forward, but before he could speak, another voice cut through the night. "Dad, stop!" We both turned to see Todd standing in the doorway, his small frame silhouetted against the light from inside. "I want to stay with Mom. Please, just leave us alone." The sight of his younger son seemed to deflate Paul. He looked from Todd to Alex, who had come to stand beside his brother, and then back to me. In that moment, I saw the realization dawn in his eyes. He had lost. Not just the battle, but his family. As Paul stumbled back to his car, defeated, I gathered my boys close. We had a long road ahead, full of healing and rebuilding trust. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of real hope. Together, we watched Paul's taillights disappear into the night, closing one chapter of our lives and opening another. Whatever came next, we would face it as a family, battered and bruised but unbroken. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of our new home. I glanced at the caller ID and felt my stomach drop. "Paul, again." "What is it now, Paul?" I answered, trying to keep my voice low so as not to wake the boys. His voice came through, frantic and desperate. "Rebecca, I need your help. Emily's gone." I sat up straighter, my mind racing. "What do you mean, gone?" "She left," Paul choked out. "Took the baby and just left. I don't know what to do." For a moment I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. The woman who had torn apart my family was now doing the same to Paul. But then reality set in. This wasn't just about Paul anymore. There was an innocent baby involved. "Paul, calm down," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Have you called the police?" "No, I can't," he stammered. "There's a note. She says if I involve the authorities, I'll never see them again." My heart sank. As much as I wanted to hang up and let Paul deal with his own mess, I couldn't. Not when a child was at risk. "I'll be there in an hour," I said, already reaching for my keys. As I crept out of the house, leaving a note for Alex and Todd, I wondered if I was making a huge mistake. But something in Paul's voice had struck a chord. He sounded broken, lost, just like I had been not so long ago. The drive back to Chicago felt surreal. Memories flooded back with each familiar landmark. By the time I pulled up to our old house, my hands were shaking. Paul looked like a shell of his former self when he opened the door. Dark circles under his eyes, clothes rumpled, the stench of alcohol on his breath. "Thank God you're here," he mumbled, pulling me inside. The house was a disaster. Dirty dishes piled in the sink, laundry strewn about, and in the middle of it all, a bassinet, empty. "Tell me everything," I demanded. As Paul recounted the past few months, my anger towards him slowly shifted to pity. Emily had grown increasingly unstable after the baby was born. Postpartum depression, the doctors had said. But she refused help, accusing Paul of trying to control her. "I thought I could handle it," Paul said, his voice breaking. "I thought if I just loved her enough, supported her enough." "Oh, Paul," I sighed. "Love isn't always enough." We spent the next few hours calling hospitals, checking Emily's favorite spots, even reaching out to her family. Nothing. As dawn broke, we sat on the front porch, exhausted and no closer to finding Emily and the baby. "I've ruined everything," Paul said quietly. "Our family, my relationship with the boys, and now I've failed as a father again." I wanted to agree with him, to twist the knife of guilt. But looking at him now, I saw not my cheating ex-husband, but a broken man who had made terrible mistakes. "We'll find them," I said, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice, "and then we'll figure out how to move forward, all of us." Paul looked at me, hope and gratitude shining in his tear-filled eyes. "Why are you helping me, Rebecca, after everything I've done?" I took a deep breath, realizing the truth as I spoke it. Because despite everything, we're still family, and family doesn't give up on each other. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I have the baby. Meet me at the park where we first met. Come alone." I showed Paul the message, watching the color drain from his face. "It's Emily," he whispered. "What do we do?" I stood up, a plan already forming in my mind. "We end this, once and for all." As I headed to my car, I realized that this moment wasn't just about finding Emily and the baby. It was about facing our past, confronting our mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, finding a way to heal the deep wounds that had torn our family apart. With a deep breath, I started the engine. Whatever happened next would change all of our lives forever, and I was ready to face it head on. 2 years had passed since that fateful night when Emily disappeared with the baby. So much had changed, yet some things remained painfully the same. As I sat on our front porch, watching Todd play in the yard, I couldn't help but think of Alex and the void his absence had left in our lives. The sound of tires on gravel pulled me from my reverie. A car I didn't recognize pulled up, and my heart nearly stopped when I saw who stepped out. Alex. He stood there, taller now, looking so much like Paul it hurt, but his eyes were all mine, uncertain, hopeful, and brimming with unshed tears. "Mom?" His voice cracked, and suddenly he was my little boy again. I was on my feet in an instant, crossing the distance between us. "Alex," I breathed, pulling him into a fierce hug. Todd's excited shout broke our embrace. "Alex, you're back!" As the boys reunited, laughing and crying, I noticed the car hadn't left. Paul stepped out, looking older and more subdued than I remembered. "Rebecca," he said softly, "I hope it's okay that I brought him." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We all moved inside, the air thick with unspoken words and lingering hurts. Alex spoke first, his words tumbling out in a rush. "Mom, I'm so sorry. For everything. For choosing Dad and Grandma. For believing their lies about you. I was wrong, and I've regretted it every day since." I took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Oh, honey, you were just a child caught in an impossible situation. I never blamed you." Paul cleared his throat. "That's on me, Alex. I put you in that position, and I'll never forgive myself for it." The room fell silent, years of pain and resentment hanging heavy between us. "What happened with Emily?" I finally asked. "And the baby?" Paul's face crumpled. "She's in a treatment facility. Postpartum psychosis, they said. The baby? Our daughter. She's with Emily's parents for now." My heart ached for the innocent child caught in this mess. "And you, Paul? How are you handling all this?" He met my gaze, his eyes full of remorse. "I'm in therapy, trying to be better, for Alex, for our daughter, and to make amends, to all of you." Todd, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, spoke up. "Does this mean we can be a family again?" The hope in his voice nearly broke me. I looked at Alex, saw the same longing reflected in his eyes. "Oh, boys," I sighed. "It's not that simple. Your father and I—" "I know we can't go back," Paul interrupted. "I don't expect that, Rebecca, but maybe we can find a way forward, for the kids' sake." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of this moment. When I opened them, I saw 4 pairs of eyes watching me expectantly. "It won't be easy," I said slowly. "There's a lot of hurt to work through, a lot of trust to rebuild." Alex nodded eagerly. "We can do it, Mom. Together." I looked at my boys, both of them, and felt a surge of love so strong it took my breath away. Then I looked at Paul, the man who had broken my heart but was now trying to piece it back together. "Okay," I said softly. "We'll try." The relief in the room was palpable. As Alex and Todd hugged, their laughter filling the air, I felt something shift inside me. The anger and bitterness I'd been carrying for so long began to loosen its grip. Paul caught my eye, a tentative smile on his face. "Thank you, Rebecca, for giving us this chance." I nodded, not quite ready to return the smile, but feeling the first stirrings of hope. "We've all made mistakes," I said, "but maybe it's time we start forgiving. Ourselves and each other." As the afternoon wore on, filled with cautious conversations and careful reconnections, I realized that this wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning. A chance to rewrite our story, not erasing the painful chapters, but learning from them. Our family would never be what it once was. But maybe, just maybe, we could build something new. Something stronger, more honest, and filled with the kind of love that weathers any storm. As I watched my boys laughing together, Paul hovering nearby with a mix of guilt and hope on his face, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The road ahead would be long and challenging, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it. Together we would heal, together we would forgive, and together we would find our way back to the family we were always meant to be. The shrill ring of my phone cut through the quiet of my office. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and a knot formed in my stomach. She never called during work hours. "Liv, it's your father." Mom's voice trembled. "He's in the hospital. You need to come home now." My world tilted on its axis. What happened? Is he okay? "Just come home, Olivia, now." The line went dead, leaving me in stunned silence. I grabbed my purse and rushed out, barely remembering to tell my assistant I had a family emergency. The drive home was a blur of memories. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, his proud smile at my college graduation, the way he'd squeeze my hand and say, "You've got this, kiddo," before every big moment in my life. I burst through the hospital doors, my heels echoing in the sterile hallway. Mom sat in a plastic chair, her face ashen. "Mom, what's going on? Where's Dad?" She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "He had a heart attack, Liv. They're running tests now." I collapsed into the chair beside her, my legs suddenly weak. "But he was fine yesterday. How could this happen?" Mom's lips tightened. "Your father hasn't been fine for a long time. He just didn't want to worry you." Before I could process that bombshell, a doctor approached. "Mrs. Thompson? I'm Dr. Patel. Your husband is stable, but he suffered a severe heart attack. He'll need ongoing care and significant lifestyle changes." I interjected. "Can we see him?" Dr. Patel nodded. "Briefly. He needs rest." We followed her to Dad's room. The sight of him, pale and small in the hospital bed, made my chest ache. His eyes fluttered open as we entered. "Hey, kiddo," he rasped, managing a weak smile. I rushed to his side, taking his hand. "Dad, you scared us. How are you feeling?" "Like I picked a fight with a bulldozer and lost," he chuckled, then winced. Mom stood at the foot of the bed, her arms crossed. "This isn't funny, Alan. You could have died." Dad's smile faded. "I know, Kathy. I'm sorry." The tension in the room was palpable. I looked between my parents, sensing an undercurrent I couldn't quite grasp. "What matters is you're okay now," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "We'll get you home and back on your feet in no time." Mom scoffed. "It's not that simple, Olivia. Your father will need round-the-clock care. Someone will have to be with him constantly." I straightened up. "I can do it. I'll work remotely and stay at the house." "Don't be ridiculous," Mom snapped. "You have a career. You can't put your life on hold." "It's not putting my life on hold, Mom. It's taking care of my family." Dad squeezed my hand. "Liv, honey, you don't have to. I want to," I insisted. "It's decided." Mom's eyes flashed with an emotion I couldn't quite place. Anger? Fear? "Fine," she said curtly, "if that's what you want." A nurse poked her head in. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Thompson needs to rest now." We said our goodbyes, promising to return tomorrow. As we walked to the parking lot, Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her face tightening. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Fine," she said, too quickly. "Just work stuff." But I caught a glimpse of the screen. It wasn't a work message. It was a text that read, "We need to talk. He knows." Mom shoved the phone in her purse. "I have some errands to run. I'll see you at home later." As she hurried away, leaving me standing alone in the lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that Dad's heart attack was just the beginning of our family's troubles. I hefted the last box into my childhood bedroom, now my temporary office and living space. Dad's recovery was going well, but the tension in the house was thicker than the summer humidity. "Liv, honey," Dad called from downstairs. "Can you help me with these pills?" I rushed down, nearly colliding with Mom in the hallway. She glared at me. I was just about to do that. "It's fine, Mom. I've got it." In the living room, Dad sat in his recliner, looking frustrated with the array of pill bottles before him. "Hey, kiddo," he smiled weakly. "Your old man can't seem to keep these straight." I organized his medication, explaining each one as I handed them to him. "How are you feeling today?" "Better, thanks to you." He squeezed my hand. "I don't know what we'd do without you here." Mom's voice cut through the moment. "She can't stay forever, Alan. She has her own life to get back to." I bit my tongue, not wanting to start another argument. Instead, I focused on Dad. "I'm happy to be here as long as you need me." Later that afternoon, I was on a conference call when Mom barged into my room without knocking. Olivia, I need you to run to the store. We're out of milk. I covered the microphone. Mom, I'm in the middle of a meeting. Can it wait? Her eyes narrowed. Fine, I'll do it myself, like everything else around here. As she stormed out, I caught sight of a small notebook falling from her purse. I quickly ended my call and picked it up, intending to return it. But as I flipped it open, my blood ran cold. It was filled with cryptic notes and numbers, dates, amounts, and initials that made no sense. One entry caught my eye. MR, $5,000, keep quiet. My mind raced. What was Mom hiding? And who was MR? A text from my friend Emma broke my concentration. Can we meet? It's urgent. I glanced at the clock. Dad would be napping and Mom was out. Sure. Coffee shop in 15? Emma was already there when I arrived, her eyes red and puffy. Liv, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Slow down, I said, sitting across from her. What's going on? She took a shaky breath. It's about your mom. And Michael. My stomach dropped. Michael was Emma's fiancé. What about them? I found your mom's engagement ring in his pocket. He's been seeing her, Liv, for months. The world tilted sideways. My mother and my best friend's fiancé? It was too horrific to comprehend. That's impossible, I whispered, but even as I said it, pieces started falling into place. The secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences, the tension with Dad. Emma grabbed my hand. There's more. I think she's been giving him money. The notebook. MR, Michael Roberts. It all made sickening sense. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my untouched coffee. I have to go. Liv, wait, Emma called after me. But I was already out the door. I drove home in a daze, my mind a whirlwind of betrayal and disbelief. How could Mom do this to Dad, to our family? As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Mom's car. She was home early. Taking a deep breath, I marched into the house, determined to confront her. But the scene that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Mom was on the phone, her voice low and urgent. Listen to me, Michael. She knows. We need to end this now before. She froze as she saw me, her face draining of color. For a long moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of unspoken truths hanging between us. Finally, I found my voice. We need to talk, Mom. Now. Mom's face drained of color as she ended the call. Olivia, I can explain. Save it, I snapped. I know about Michael. I know about the money. How could you do this to Dad? She flinched, then straightened her spine. You don't understand. Your father and I... Don't you dare blame Dad for this, I hissed. He's upstairs recovering from a heart attack while you're sneaking around with my best friend's fiancé. It's not that simple, Mom said, her voice low. Your father hasn't been the man I married for a long time. He was always at work, always distracted. I felt invisible. I shook my head in disbelief. So you decided to have an affair? To betray your entire family? I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. It started as revenge, I suppose. But Michael understood me in a way your father never did. The front door opened and Dad's voice called out, Kathy, Liv, is everything okay? Mom's eyes widened in panic. Alan, you shouldn't be up. I watched as Dad shuffled into the room, his face pale and drawn. I heard raised voices. What's going on? The moment hung in the air, thick with tension. I looked at Mom, silently daring her to tell the truth. She cleared her throat. Nothing, dear, just a little disagreement about Liv's work schedule. I couldn't believe it. Even now she was lying. No, Dad, that's not what this is about. Olivia, don't, Mom warned, but I was beyond caring. Dad, Mom's been having an affair with Michael, Emma's fiancé. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face crumpled, a mix of confusion and pain. Kathy, is this true? Mom's facade finally cracked. Alan, I'm so sorry. I never meant. But Dad wasn't listening. He clutched his chest, stumbling backward. Dad! I rushed to his side, helping him to the couch. Are you okay? Do you need your medication? He waved me off, his eyes fixed on Mom. How long? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mom's shoulders sagged. A few months. Maybe a year. I gasped. A year? You've been lying to us for a year? Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Is everything okay? You left so suddenly. Can we talk? I ignored it, focusing on Dad. His breathing was labored, and I worried about his heart. We need to get you back to bed, I said gently. Come on, I'll help you upstairs. As we slowly made our way up, I glared at Mom. This isn't over. We're going to have a long talk when I come back down. Once Dad was settled, I returned to find Mom sitting at the kitchen table, her head in her hands. How could you? I demanded. And the money? What was that about? She looked up, her eyes red. Michael, he needed help. His business was struggling. And you what? Decided to bail out your lover with Dad's hard-earned money? It wasn't like that, she protested weakly. Then what was it like, Mom? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've betrayed every single person who loves you. A knock at the door interrupted us. I opened it to find Emma standing there, looking distraught. Liv, I'm so sorry. I didn't know where else to go. Michael, he's gone. He took the money and left. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Everything was falling apart, and I had no idea how to put it back together. As Emma sobbed in the doorway and Mom stared blankly from the kitchen, I realized that this was just the beginning of a storm that threatened to tear our family apart. And somehow, I had to find a way to weather it. The days following Mom's confession were a blur of tension and hushed arguments. I threw myself into caring for Dad, desperate to shield him from the full extent of Mom's betrayal. But as I dug deeper into our family's finances, my blood ran cold. Dad, did you know about these withdrawals? I asked, showing him the bank statements I'd found. He squinted at the paper, confusion etching his face. I don't remember authorizing these. Kathy handles most of our finances now. My stomach churned. These aren't just small amounts, Dad. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. A shadow crossed his face. Liv, honey, I'm sure there's an explanation. Your mother wouldn't what, Dad? Lie? Cheat? She's already done both. The hurt in his eyes made me regret my harsh words, but I couldn't back down. Not now. I confronted Mom that evening, waving the bank statements in her face. Care to explain this? She paled, then quickly composed herself. It's none of your business, Olivia. I'm handling our finances. Handling? You're bleeding us dry. What have you been doing with all this money? Her eyes flashed dangerously. Watch your tone, young lady. I'm still your mother. Then act like it, I shouted. Tell me the truth for once. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Mom's hand flew up and I felt a sharp sting across my cheek. We both froze, shocked by her action. Olivia, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I stepped back, my cheek burning. Don't touch me. Ever again. Just then, Dad appeared in the doorway, his face ashen. What's going on down here? The silence was deafening. Mom looked trapped, her eyes darting between Dad and me. Your wife, I said, my voice shaking, has been stealing from us. Thousands of dollars, Dad, probably to fund her affair with Michael. Dad stumbled, gripping the doorframe for support. Kathy, tell me this isn't true. Mom's facade finally crumbled. Alan, please, I can explain. Michael needed help with his business, Dad, and I thought I could fix things. Fix things? I laughed bitterly. By throwing Dad's hard-earned money at your lover? How exactly was that supposed to fix anything? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. All those years of saving, our retirement. Kathy, how could you? As Mom launched into a tearful explanation, my phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Hey sis, everything okay? You've been radio silent lately. I made a split-second decision. Dad, I interrupted, pack a bag, we're leaving. Both my parents stared at me. What are you talking about? Mom demanded. We can't stay here. It's not safe for Dad's recovery, and I can't trust you anymore, Mom. We're going to Rachel's. Dad looked torn. Liv, honey, I don't know if that's... Please, Dad, I begged, just for a little while, until we figure things out. He nodded slowly, the fight seeming to drain out of him. Mom's face contorted with rage. You can't do this, Alan. You can't leave me. But Dad was already heading upstairs to pack. I turned to follow him, but Mom grabbed my arm. If you do this, Olivia, I swear I'll make you regret it. I'll call your boss. I'll tell them how you've abandoned your job to meddle in family affairs. I wrenched my arm free, meeting her gaze steadily. Go ahead. There's nothing you can say that's worse than what you've already done. As I helped Dad pack, my mind raced. I knew this decision would change everything. But I couldn't see any other way forward. We needed space, safety, and time to heal. With our bags packed and loaded into my car, I took one last look at the house I'd grown up in. Mom stood in the doorway, a mixture of anger and fear on her face. This isn't over, she called as we pulled away. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, knowing she was right. This was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. But for now, all that mattered was getting Dad to safety and figuring out our next move. The drive to Rachel's felt endless. Dad dozed in the passenger seat, his face etched with exhaustion and heartbreak. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing with plans and worries. As we pulled into Rachel's driveway, my phone buzzed incessantly. Mom's name flashed on the screen, along with a barrage of texts. "How dare you take your father? You'll regret this, Olivia. I'm calling your boss right now." I silenced the phone, my hands shaking. Rachel burst out of the house, enveloping us in hugs. "Oh, Liv," she whispered, her eyes full of concern. "Dad, are you okay?" We settled Dad in the guest room, and Rachel pulled me into the kitchen. "Spill. What the hell is going on?" I told her everything. Mom's affair, the stolen money, the slap. Rachel's face darkened with each revelation. "That manipulative witch," she hissed. "I always knew she was toxic, but this..." Just then my phone rang. It was my boss, David. "Liv, what's this I hear about you abandoning your job and stealing company resources?" My blood ran cold. "What, David, that's not true. Who told you that?" "Your mother called. She's making some pretty serious allegations. I need you in the office tomorrow to sort this out." I felt the floor drop out from under me. "David, I can explain. My father's ill and there's a family crisis. I've been working remotely. Tomorrow, Liv, or we'll have to reconsider your position." The call ended, and I slumped against the counter, tears threatening to spill. Rachel hugged me tight. "We'll figure this out, sis. Mom's not going to win." A knock at the door startled us. Rachel peered through the peephole and gasped, "It's Mom!" My heart raced. "Don't let her in!" But it was too late. Mom pushed past Rachel, her eyes wild. "Where is he? Alan, come home now!" Dad appeared in the hallway, looking small and defeated. "Kathy, please, let's not do this here." Mom's voice turned sickeningly sweet. "Darling, these girls are manipulating you. They don't understand our relationship. Come home and we'll sort everything out." I stepped between them. "He's not going anywhere with you. You've done enough damage." Mom's face contorted with rage. "You ungrateful brat, after everything I've sacrificed for this family." "Sacrificed?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean like sacrificing Dad's retirement fund for your lover?" The room fell silent. Dad's face crumpled as the full weight of Mom's betrayal hit him. "Is that true, Kathy?" he whispered. Mom's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of fear. "Alan, I can explain. It was for us, for our future." "Stop lying," I shouted. "Just for once, tell the truth." Mom's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal, then something in her seemed to snap. "Fine. You want the truth? I've been miserable for years. Your father was never there, always at work. Michael made me feel alive again. And yes, I took the money. I deserved it after everything I've endured in this marriage." The silence that followed was deafening. Dad looked utterly broken. Rachel was shaking with anger, and I felt a strange calm settle over me. "Get out," I said quietly. Mom blinked. "What? Get out of this house. Now, or I swear I'll call the police and report you for financial elder abuse." "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. I met her gaze steadily. "Try me." For a moment, I thought she might lash out again, but then her shoulders sagged. "This isn't over," she muttered before storming out. As the door slammed, Dad collapsed into a chair, his face in his hands. Rachel rushed to comfort him, while I stood frozen, the weight of what had just happened crashing over me. I knew in that moment that our lives would never be the same. Mom's betrayal had shattered our family, and the road ahead would be painful and uncertain. But as I looked at Dad and Rachel, I felt a fierce determination rise within me. We would survive this, we would heal, and I would do whatever it took to protect what was left of our family. No matter the cost. The crisp country air filled my lungs as I stepped onto Rachel's porch, coffee in hand. It had been 2 weeks since we'd fled from Mom's toxic grip, and Dad was slowly regaining his strength. The quiet mornings here were a balm to our battered spirits. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "We need to talk. It's urgent." I hesitated. After everything that had happened, did I really want to open that can of worms? But curiosity won out. "Meet me at the cafe in town in an hour," I replied. As I drove into town, my mind raced. What could Emma possibly have to say that was so urgent? The bell above the cafe door jingled as I entered. Emma sat in a corner booth, looking pale and nervous. She stood when she saw me, wringing her hands. "Liv, I'm so sorry for everything. I never meant." I cut her off. "Save it, Emma. What's so urgent?" She took a deep breath. "It's your mom. She's been spreading rumors about you back home. Nasty ones." My stomach dropped. "What kind of rumors?" She's telling everyone you kidnapped your dad, that you're unstable and dangerous. She's even contacted your old clients saying you embezzled company funds. The room spun. I gripped the table to steady myself. She what? Emma's eyes were full of guilt. There's more. Michael, he's back in town. He and your mom, they're planning something. I overheard them talking about getting your dad declared incompetent so they can control his assets. White-hot rage coursed through me. How do you know all this? I've been trying to make amends, Liv. I've been keeping tabs on them, trying to protect you somehow. Just then, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from colleagues, old friends, even my boss. Is it true? How could you do this to your own father? We're launching a formal investigation into your accounts. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages. Everything I'd worked for, my reputation, my career, it was all crumbling because of Mom's vindictive lies. I have to go, I muttered, stumbling out of the cafe. I drove back to Rachel's in a daze, my mind reeling. How could I fight this? How could I protect Dad and salvage what was left of my life? As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Rachel on the porch, her face ashen. Liv, thank God you're back. It's Dad. My heart stopped. What happened? He collapsed. The paramedics are on their way. The next few hours were a blur of sirens, hospital corridors, and anxious waiting. When the doctor finally emerged, his face was grave. Your father's had another heart attack. It was minor, but given his recent history, we're very concerned. Has he been under any unusual stress lately? Rachel and I exchanged a look. If only he knew. As we sat by Dad's bedside, holding his frail hands, my phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Hope you're happy now. You're killing your father with your selfish behavior. Come home and end this madness, or I'll make sure you lose everything. Mom. Rage and despair warred within me. How had it come to this? How could I protect Dad, clear my name, and stop Mom's destructive rampage? Rachel squeezed my shoulder. What are we going to do, Liv? I looked at Dad's pale face, then back at the threatening text. In that moment, I knew there was only one path forward. We're going to fight, I said, my voice steely with determination. We're going to expose every lie, every manipulation, every illegal act, and we're going to take Mom down, once and for all. Rachel's eyes widened. Are you sure? This could get ugly. I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. It's already ugly, but I'm done being a victim. It's time to show Mom that she messed with the wrong daughter. As I began making calls, setting my plan in motion, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The storm was coming, and this time I'd be the one controlling the lightning. The hospital corridor seemed to stretch endlessly as Rachel and I marched towards Mom's room. Dad was stable, but the doctor's words echoed in my mind. Minimize stress. Another episode could be fatal. My hands clenched into fists. It was time to end this once and for all. We found Mom sitting by Dad's bedside, the picture of a concerned wife. Her eyes widened as we entered. Girls, what are you? Save it, I snapped. We need to talk, now. Rachel gently ushered Mom out, leaving me alone with Dad. He stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Liv, what's going on? I squeezed his hand. It's okay, Dad. We're fixing things. Just rest. In the waiting room, Mom's facade cracked as Rachel and I confronted her with everything. The affair, the stolen money, the vicious rumors. How could you? Rachel's voice trembled. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? Mom's face contorted, a mix of anger and fear. You don't understand. I had no choice. Your father. Don't you dare blame Dad, I hissed. He's lying in that hospital bed because of you. Because of me? Mom's laugh was bitter. I gave up everything for this family. My dreams, my identity, and what did I get? A husband who was never home and ungrateful children who... The slap echoed in the quiet room. My palm stung, but the shock on Mom's face was worth it. Enough, I said, my voice low and dangerous. No more lies, no more manipulation. It ends now. Mom's eyes darted between us, realizing she was cornered. What do you want from me? The truth, Rachel said. All of it. And then you're going to make this right. For a moment I thought Mom would lash out again, but then something in her seemed to crumble. She sank into a chair, suddenly looking every bit her 62 years. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. Michael, he made me feel alive again, but then he started asking for money and I couldn't say no. I was afraid of losing him, of being alone. The confession poured out, years of resentment, the thrill of the affair, the spiral of lies and theft to keep it going. With each word, the mother I thought I knew faded away, replaced by a deeply flawed, frightened woman. And the rumors, I pressed. The attempts to destroy my career. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I was angry. I thought if I could bring you back, make you need me again, everything would be okay. I didn't realize that you were tearing us apart. Rachel finished. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Thompson is asking for all of you. We filed into Dad's room, the weight of unspoken truths heavy between us. Dad looked at each of us, his eyes tired but clear. I heard everything, he said softly. Mom gasped. Alan! He held up a hand. No more, Kathy. It's time we all faced the truth. For the next hour, years of pain and secrets spilled out. Dad's workaholic tendencies, Mom's growing resentment, the slow erosion of their marriage. Rachel and I shared our own hurts, the impact their dysfunction had on our lives. As the sun set outside the hospital window, we sat in exhausted silence. The family we once were lay in ruins around us, but amidst the debris, I felt a glimmer of something new, hope perhaps, or at least the possibility of healing. So what now? Rachel asked, voicing the question we were all thinking. I looked at each of them. Dad, frail but resolute. Mom, broken but finally honest. Rachel, my steadfast ally through it all. The path forward was unclear, fraught with challenges and painful conversations, but for the first time in months, I felt ready to face it. Now, I said, taking a deep breath, we rebuild, together. As we nodded in collective agreement, I realized this was just the beginning. The real work of healing, forgiveness, and redefining our family was yet to come. But at least now we were facing it with open eyes and honest hearts. 6 months after that fateful day in the hospital, I stood in Rachel's backyard watching Dad tend to his new vegetable garden. The summer sun warmed my face as I marveled at how much had changed. Dad's recovery had been slow but steady. Each day, he grew stronger, both physically and emotionally. The garden had been Rachel's idea, a way for him to stay active and find purpose in his new life. Liv. Mom's voice called from the porch. Can you help me with these trays? I tensed instinctively, then forced myself to relax. This was the new normal we were all trying to navigate. After her breakdown, Mom had finally agreed to therapy. It wasn't an easy road. There were still days filled with anger and resentment, but slowly, we were learning to communicate without the lies and manipulation that had poisoned our family for so long. As I helped Mom set up for our weekly family dinner, I caught her watching Dad with a mixture of sadness and longing. He looks happy, she said softly. He is, I replied. We all are, Mom, or at least, we're getting there. She nodded, blinking back tears. I know I have a long way to go, Liv, but I'm trying. I really am. I squeezed her hand, surprised by the gesture of affection. I know, Mom, we see it. Rachel emerged from the house carrying a steaming casserole. All right, troops, dinner's ready. As we gathered around the table, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we'd come. The wounds were still there, but they were healing. We were learning to be honest with each other, to face our fears and shortcomings head on. Dad cleared his throat. Before we eat, I have something to say. He looked at each of us in turn, his eyes bright with emotion. I know these past months haven't been easy, but I want you all to know how proud I am of this family. We've faced our demons and we're still standing, together. Mom reached for his hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable half a year ago. Alan, Let me finish, Kathy, he said gently. I know we have a long road ahead, but I'm committed to this family, to healing and growing, and I hope you all are too. We raised our glasses in a silent toast, the weight of Dad's words settling over us. As we ate, the conversation flowed more easily than it had in years. We laughed, we reminisced, and yes, we even touched on some of the painful moments that had brought us here. But this time, there was no venom, no hidden agendas, just honesty and a shared desire to move forward. After dinner, as Rachel and Mom cleared the table, I stepped outside for some air. The sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. I closed my eyes, letting the peace of the moment wash over me. Penny, for your thoughts? Dad's voice startled me. I smiled as he joined me on the porch. Just thinking about how much has changed, how much we've all changed. He nodded, his eyes distant. You know, Liv, when I had that first heart attack, I thought my life was over. But now I realize it was just beginning. We were given a second chance, as individuals and as a family. Tears pricked my eyes. I'm so glad you're here, Dad, that we're all here, really trying. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment I was that little girl again, safe in her father's arms. Me too, kiddo, me too. As we stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Our family wasn't perfect, far from it. We still had our struggles, our moments of doubt and pain, but we were facing them together, with honesty and love. The journey of healing was far from over, but for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about our future. We had weathered the storm, confronted our deepest fears and failings, and emerged stronger for it. As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, I made a silent promise to myself and to my family. We would continue to fight for each other, to heal, to grow, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them as we stood now, united, resilient, and filled with love. I stared at the text message on my phone, my vision blurring as tears welled up in my eyes. The bustling office around me faded into a dull hum. How could this be happening? Abby, are you okay? My assistant, Sarah, touched my arm gently. You look like you've seen a ghost. I blinked, forcing myself back to reality. I'm fine. I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. Just give me a moment, please. As Sarah retreated, I read the message again, hoping I'd somehow misunderstood. But there it was, plain as day. I saw Mark with another woman at Café Noir. They were definitely more than friends. I'm so sorry, Abby. My best friend Jen had always been brutally honest. But this couldn't be true. Mark and I had been married for 10 years. We had our ups and downs, sure. But an affair? It seemed impossible. I grabbed my purse and rushed out of the office, ignoring the concerned looks from my colleagues. The crisp autumn air hit my face as I burst onto the sidewalk, my heels clicking furiously against the pavement. Café Noir was only a few blocks away. I had to see for myself. As I rounded the corner, my heart nearly stopped. There they were, sitting at an outdoor table, heads close together. Mark's hand rested on hers, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. I recognized her immediately. Lydia, the new marketing assistant at his firm. Young, beautiful, and apparently the object of my husband's affection. Before I could stop myself, I marched up to their table. Well, isn't this cozy? Mark's head snapped up, his face draining of color. Abby, what are you? Save it, I spat, my voice trembling with rage. I can't believe you, Mark. 10 years of marriage, and this is how you repay me? Lydia had the decency to look ashamed, quickly pulling her hand away from Mark's. I'm so sorry, I didn't. I held up a hand, silencing her. Don't, just don't. Mark stood up, reaching for me. Abby, please, let me explain. I stepped back, my eyes burning with unshed tears. Explain what, Mark? How you've been lying to me? How you've been sneaking around behind my back? People at nearby tables were staring now, but I couldn't bring myself to care. My entire world was crumbling around me, and all I could feel was a searing, white-hot anger. I trusted you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I gave you everything. Mark's face crumpled. I know. I'm sorry. I never meant for this to happen. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course not. It never does it? I turned to leave, but Mark grabbed my arm. Abby, wait. Please, can we talk about this? I yanked my arm free, fixing him with a glare that could have melted steel. There's nothing to talk about. You've made your choice. As I walked away, I could hear Mark calling after me, but I didn't look back. My phone buzzed in my purse. Probably my mother, Myra, wondering why I'd left work so abruptly. I ignored it. I wandered aimlessly through the city streets, my mind reeling. How had I not seen this coming? Were there signs I'd missed? And what was I supposed to do now? As the sun began to set, I found myself in front of our apartment building. My hand shook as I inserted the key into the lock. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of home hitting me like a punch to the gut. Our wedding photo hung on the wall, mocking me with its frozen smiles and promises of forever. In a fit of rage, I grabbed it and hurled it across the room. The sound of shattering glass was oddly satisfying. I sank to the floor, finally allowing the tears to fall. My phone buzzed again, and this time I answered. Abby? My mother's concerned voice filled my ear. What's going on? Are you all right? I took a shaky breath. No, Mom, I'm not all right, Mark. He's been cheating on me. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I closed my eyes, suddenly feeling every bit of my 35 years. I don't know, Mom. I don't know what to do. I sat across from Mark at our kitchen table, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of coffee. 2 weeks had passed since I'd caught him with Lydia, and the pain still felt as fresh as ever. I want to make this work, Abby, Mark said, his voice low and pleading. Tell me what I can do to fix this. I sighed, feeling the weight of exhaustion settling over me. I don't know if you can fix this, Mark. You broke my trust. How am I supposed to move past that? Before he could respond, my phone buzzed. It was my mother, Myra. I answered, putting it on speaker. Abby, dear, Myra's voice filled the room. Have you two made any progress? I rolled my eyes. Mom, it's not that simple. Actually, Mark interrupted, I have an idea. What if we moved in with my family for a while? A change of scenery might do us good. I stared at him, incredulous. You can't be serious. It's not a bad idea, Myra chimed in. Sometimes being around family can help heal wounds. I felt cornered. Mom, you can't possibly think. Abby, Myra's tone turned stern. You've worked too hard on this marriage to throw it away. Give it a chance. I looked at Mark, who was watching me with hopeful eyes. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell them both they were crazy. But another part, a smaller, more desperate part, wondered if this might be our last chance. Fine, I said finally, my voice barely above a whisper. We'll try it, but I'm not making any promises. The relief on Mark's face was palpable. Thank you, Abby. You won't regret this. But as I hung up the phone and met Mark's gaze, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was making a terrible mistake. 2 days later, we were pulling up to Mark's family home, a sprawling Victorian house that always felt more like a museum than a home. Mark's sister Julia was waiting on the porch, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Well, well, she said as we got out of the car. Look who finally decided to grace us with their presence. I forced a smile. Hello, Julia. Thanks for having us. She sniffed, turning on her heel. Come on then, Mother's waiting inside. As we followed Julia into the house, I felt Mark's hand on the small of my back. It was meant to be comforting, I'm sure, but it only served to remind me of how he'd touched Lydia that day at the cafe. Mark's mother, Eleanor, greeted us in the foyer. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were calculating. Abby, dear, we're so glad you've decided to give Mark another chance. I bristled at her words. I haven't decided anything yet, Eleanor. We're just trying. Julia snorted. Trying? Is that what we're calling it now? Julia, Mark warned, but she just rolled her eyes. I'm just saying what we're all thinking, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. If Abby were really committed to this marriage, she wouldn't need to try. She'd just forgive and forget. I felt my temper flare. Excuse me. Your brother cheated on me. I think I'm entitled to some time to process that. The room fell silent. Eleanor cleared her throat. Perhaps we should all get settled in. Julia, why don't you show Abby to her room? Julia's eyes narrowed. Her room? I thought they'd be sharing. Mark stepped in. We thought it best to have separate rooms for now. Give each other some space. I could see the wheels turning in Julia's head, no doubt concocting some new way to make my life miserable. But she plastered on a fake smile and gestured for me to follow her. As we climbed the stairs, Julia's voice drifted back to me. You know, Abby, not everyone gets a second chance. You should be grateful Mark's willing to overlook your shortcomings. I stopped short. My shortcomings? What's that supposed to mean? She turned, her smile sharp as a knife. Oh, nothing. I just think it's admirable that Mark's willing to work things out, considering... Considering what? I demanded. Julia shrugged. Well, you're not exactly getting any younger, are you? And let's face it, your career has always come first. It's no wonder Mark felt neglected. I felt like I'd been slapped. Before I could respond, Julia continued up the stairs, leaving me standing there, my fists clenched at my sides. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just about saving my marriage. This was war, and Julia had just fired the first shot. I woke up to the sound of hushed voices outside my door. Glancing at the clock, I saw it was barely 6 a.m. I crept closer, straining to hear. She doesn't belong here, Mark, Julia's voice hissed. Can't you see what she's doing to this family? Keep your voice down, Mark replied. Abby's trying, Julia. We all are. I heard Julia scoff. Trying? Please. She's just biding her time, waiting to take you for everything you've got. My blood boiled. How dare she? I flung open the door, startling them both. If anyone's trying to take something, it's you, Julia, I snapped. What's your problem with me? Julia's eyes narrowed. My problem? You're the one who can't let go of one little mistake. Little mistake? I laughed bitterly. Your brother cheated on me. Mark stepped between us. Please, both of you, calm down. I turned on him. And you? Are you going to let her talk to me like this? Before Mark could respond, Eleanor appeared at the end of the hallway. What's all this commotion? Julia immediately switched to a saccharine tone. Nothing, Mother. We were just discussing breakfast plans. I opened my mouth to protest, but Mark shot me a pleading look. I bit my tongue, seething. Eleanor smiled, oblivious to the tension. Wonderful. Abby, dear, why don't you help me in the kitchen? As I followed Eleanor downstairs, I could feel Julia's smug gaze burning into my back. In the kitchen, Eleanor handed me an apron. Now, Abby, I know you're not much of a cook, but I'm sure you can manage to set the table. I bristled at her condescending tone, but forced a smile. Of course, Eleanor. As I laid out plates and cutlery, Eleanor prattled on about family traditions and the importance of a woman's touch in the home. I tuned her out, focusing on not breaking the expensive china in my grip. Breakfast was a tense affair. Julia dominated the conversation, regaling everyone with stories of her successful career and social life. I pushed my food around my plate, feeling increasingly out of place. So, Abby, Julia said suddenly, her tone sickly sweet. How's work? Oh, wait, I forgot. You're on a sabbatical, right? I gritted my teeth. It's called compassionate leave, Julia. Some companies actually care about their employees' well-being. Julia's smile didn't falter. Of course, it must be nice to have so much free time. Maybe you could use it to brush up on your domestic skills. Before I could retort, Mark's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling slightly. Everything all right, dear? Eleanor asked. Mark nodded, a bit too quickly. Just work, if you'll excuse me. As he left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I excused myself and followed him, finding him in the study, speaking in hushed tones. Lydia, you can't keep calling me, I heard him say. I told you, it's over. My heart stopped. Lydia? He was still in contact with her? Mark's voice dropped even lower. No, I haven't told her. Look, I need time, okay? Just give me some time. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. What hadn't he told me? What was he hiding? As I turned to leave, I bumped into a side table, knocking over a vase. The crash echoed through the house. Mark burst out of the study, his face a mix of guilt and surprise. Abby, I can explain. I held up a hand, fighting back tears. Save it, Mark. I've heard enough. Julia appeared in the doorway, her eyes gleaming with malicious curiosity. Oh my, what's happened now? I pushed past her, heading for the stairs. Ask your brother. I spat. As I reached my room, I heard Eleanor's voice floating up from below. Mark, darling, is everything all right? I slammed the door, muffling Mark's response. Leaning against it, I slid to the floor, my head in my hands. What was I doing here? This wasn't saving my marriage. This was slowly destroying what little self-respect I had left. A soft knock on the door startled me. Abby? It was Mark. Can we talk? I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It was time for some answers, and I was going to get them, no matter the cost. I opened the door, my jaw set and eyes blazing. Mark stood there, looking like a deer caught in headlights. Abby, Save it, I cut him off. I want the truth, Mark. All of it. Now, he sighed, shoulders slumping, can we talk somewhere private? I nodded curtly and followed him to the study. As soon as the door closed, I rounded on him. You're still talking to Lydia? After everything? Mark ran a hand through his hair. It's not what you think. She's pregnant, Abby. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. What? I just found out, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do. I laughed bitterly. Oh, that's rich. You don't know what to do. How about not cheating on your wife in the first place? Before Mark could respond, the door burst open. Julia stood there, a look of mock concern on her face. Is everything okay? I heard raised voices. I glared at her. This is none of your business, Julia. She ignored me, turning to Mark. Brother dear, what's wrong? You look awful. Mark hesitated, glancing between us. I could see the moment he caved. Lydia's pregnant. He blurted out. Julia's eyes widened, then a slow smile spread across her face. Oh, Mark, what a predicament you found yourself in. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Are you actually enjoying this? I asked, incredulous. Julia shrugged. I'm just concerned for my brother's well-being. unlike some people who only seem to care about themselves. That was the last straw. "Get out," I snarled. "Both of you. Now." They left, Julia practically dragging Mark out. As soon as the door closed, I collapsed into a chair, my mind reeling. Hours later, I emerged from the study, emotionally drained but determined. I found Eleanor in the living room, arranging flowers. "Ah, Abby," she said, not looking up. "Be a dear and fetch the good china. We're having guests for dinner." I took a deep breath. "Actually, Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something." She finally looked at me, her expression guarded. "Oh? What about?" "I overheard Mark on the phone earlier," I began. His mistress is pregnant." Eleanor's face remained impassive. "I see. And what do you plan to do about it?" I blinked, taken aback by her lack of reaction. You knew?" She sighed, setting down her flowers. "Abby, dear, these things happen in marriages. The important thing is how we handle them." "Handle them?" I repeated, my voice rising. "He cheated on me, Eleanor, and now there's a baby involved." Eleanor's eyes hardened. "Lower your voice. We don't air our dirty laundry in public." "Public? This is your home." "Exactly," she snapped, "and in this home we stand by family, no matter what." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So what? I'm just supposed to accept this? Pretend everything's fine?" Eleanor stood, smoothing her skirt. "You're supposed to be a supportive wife. Now about that china." "No," I said firmly, "I won't be fetching anything. I'm not your maid, Eleanor." Her eyes narrowed. "Now listen here, young lady. While you're under my roof." "While I'm under your roof, what?" I challenged. "You'll treat me like a servant? Expect me to turn a blind eye to your son's infidelity?" Eleanor's face flushed with anger. "If you can't behave like a proper wife and daughter-in-law, perhaps it's best you leave." "Maybe I will," I shot back. Just then, Julia appeared in the doorway. "Is everything all right?" I heard shouting. Eleanor composed herself quickly. "Everything's fine, dear. Abby was just offering to help with dinner preparations, weren't you, Abby?" I opened my mouth to protest, but the look in Eleanor's eyes stopped me cold. It was a challenge, daring me to make a scene. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could walk away, admit defeat, and let them win, or I could stay and fight, on their turf, and by their rules. I forced a smile. "Of course, Eleanor, I'd be happy to help." As I followed her to the kitchen, I caught Julia's smug grin. Little did they know, this was far from over. If they wanted to play games, I'd show them just how good I could be at playing dirty. I was elbow-deep in soapy water, scrubbing dishes from yet another elaborate family dinner, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my banking app. Curious, I dried my hands and checked it. My heart nearly stopped. There was a transfer of $5,000 to an account I didn't recognize. I quickly scrolled through my recent transactions, my blood running cold as I spotted several similar transfers over the past few weeks. "What the hell?" I muttered, my mind racing. I hadn't made these transfers, which meant... The sound of laughter drifted in from the living room. I peered around the corner to see Julia, sprawled on the couch, showing off a pair of designer shoes to Eleanor. "Aren't they divine, Mother?" Julia cooed. "I simply had to have them." Eleanor beamed. "They're lovely, dear. You deserve to treat yourself." My eyes narrowed. The price tag on those shoes looked awfully familiar. I stormed into the living room, my phone clutched tightly in my hand. "Julia, we need to talk, now." She looked up, annoyed. "Can't you see I'm busy?" "Oh, I can see exactly what you've been busy with," I snapped, thrusting my phone in her face. "Care to explain these transfers?" Julia's face paled for a moment before she regained her composure. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb," I hissed. "You've been stealing from me." Eleanor stood up, her face a mask of concern. "Abby, dear, surely there's been some mistake. Julia would never—" "Save it, Eleanor," I cut her off. "I want answers, and I want them now." Just then, Mark walked in. "What's going on?" I turned to him, my voice shaking with rage. "Your sister has been helping herself to my money. Thousands of dollars, Mark." Mark looked bewildered. "Julia, is this true?" Julia's eyes filled with tears. "Of course not. How could you even think that, Mark? After everything I've done for this family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Everything you've done? You mean like making my life a living hell since I got here?" "That's enough." Eleanor's voice cut through the tension. "Abby, I won't have you making such wild accusations in my home." I gaped at her. "Wild accusations?" "I have proof." Eleanor waved her hand dismissively. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Perhaps you've forgotten about these transfers. You have been under a lot of stress lately. I turned to Mark, desperate for support, but he just stood there, looking uncomfortable. Mark, I pleaded, you can't seriously believe this. He ran a hand through his hair. Abby, maybe we should discuss this privately. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I felt like I was losing my mind. A misunderstanding? Your sister is a thief, and you're all just going to pretend it didn't happen. Julia stood up, her face a picture of injured innocence. I can't believe you'd stoop so low, Abby, making up lies just because you're jealous of my success. Jealous? I sputtered. Of what? Your ability to mooch off others? That's it, Eleanor snapped. Abby, I think you need to go to your room and calm down. We'll discuss this when you're in a more reasonable state of mind. I looked around the room, at the faces of my so-called family. Julia, smug and unrepentant, Eleanor, cold and dismissive, and Mark, weak and indecisive. In that moment, something inside me snapped. No, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I'm done being reasonable. I'm done playing by your rules. I turned to Julia, a slow smile spreading across my face. You want to play dirty? Fine. But remember, you started this war, and I intend to finish it. With that, I stormed out of the room, leaving a stunned silence in my wake. As I climbed the stairs to my room, my mind was already racing with plans. They thought they could walk all over me? They had no idea what I was capable of. It was time to show this family exactly who they were dealing with, and God help them when I did. I was in the middle of plotting my next move when I overheard Julia on the phone in the hallway. Her excited whispers piqued my curiosity. Yes, Jacob, I can't wait to tell everyone, she gushed. The ring is absolutely stunning. You shouldn't have spent so much. My ears perked up. Jacob? Ring? Was Julia getting engaged? I crept closer to the door, straining to hear more. Of course, darling. We'll announce it at the family dinner next week. It'll be perfect. As Julia's footsteps faded away, a plan began to form in my mind. This engagement could be the key to exposing Julia for who she really was. Over the next few days, I played the part of the dutiful sister-in-law, helping with dinner preparations and feigning excitement about Julia's surprise announcement. All the while, I was gathering evidence of her deceit. The night of the dinner arrived, and the house was buzzing with anticipation. I watched as Julia preened in front of the mirror, adjusting her designer dress, no doubt bought with my money. You look lovely, dear, Eleanor cooed. Jacob is a lucky man. I bit back a retort and plastered on a smile. Yes, he certainly is. As guests began to arrive, I slipped away to the study. I needed to make a crucial phone call. Myra, it's Abby. I need your help. My mother's concerned voice came through the line. Abby, what's wrong? I took a deep breath. I'm about to do something drastic, Mom. I need you to trust me. There was a pause. Abby, what are you planning? Justice, I said firmly. Can you be here in an hour? After getting Myra's assurance, I rejoined the party. Julia was in her element, flitting from guest to guest, her left hand conspicuously bare. I caught Mark's eye across the room, and he gave me a weak smile. My heart clenched. Despite everything, a part of me still loved him. Finally, Jacob arrived. He was tall, handsome, and clearly wealthy, exactly Julia's type. I watched as she fawned over him, playing the part of the perfect girlfriend. As dinner was served, Julia clinked her glass. Everyone, Jacob and I have an announcement to make. The room fell silent as Julia held up her left hand, now adorned with a massive diamond ring. We're engaged. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations. I stood up, my heart pounding. It was now or never. I'd like to make a toast, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. Julia's eyes narrowed, but she nodded graciously. I raised my glass. To Julia and Jacob, may your life together be as honest and transparent as Julia has always been. A ripple of confusion went through the room. Julia's smile faltered. In fact, I continued, I think it's only fair that Jacob knows exactly what kind of woman he's marrying. Abby, Mark warned, but I ignored him. I turned to Jacob. Did you know that your fiancée has been stealing money from me? Thousands of dollars used to fund her lavish lifestyle? The room fell deathly silent. Julia's face drained of color. That's ridiculous, she sputtered. You have no proof. Oh, but I do, I said, pulling out a stack of bank statements. And that's not all. Julia, Why don't you tell everyone about the affair you've been having with Jacob's business partner? Jacob's head snapped towards Julia. What? Just then, the doorbell rang. Eleanor moved to answer it, but I beat her to it. I opened the door to reveal my mother, Myra, and a man I didn't recognize. Perfect timing, I said. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Detective Johnson. He's here to discuss the fraudulent activities happening in this house. Chaos erupted. Julia lunged at me, her face contorted with rage. You bitch! You've ruined everything. As Mark and Jacob pulled Julia away, I locked eyes with my mother. Her expression was a mix of shock and pride. In that moment, standing in the midst of the pandemonium I'd created, I felt a surge of triumph. The truth was finally out, and there was no going back. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the storm. The room erupted into chaos. Julia's face contorted with rage as she lunged at me, her perfectly manicured nails barely missing my face. You vindictive bitch, she screamed. Mark and Jacob wrestled her away, but the damage was done. The facade of the perfect family had shattered. Detective Johnson stepped forward, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. Miss Julia, I'm going to need you to come with me for questioning. Eleanor's shrill voice pierced the air. This is preposterous. I won't allow it. I turned to her, my voice steady despite my racing heart. You don't have a choice, Eleanor. The evidence is irrefutable. As the detective led Julia away, I caught sight of Jacob's devastated face. For a moment, I felt a twinge of guilt. But then I remembered all the pain and humiliation I'd endured, and my resolve hardened. Mark approached me, his face a mask of confusion and anger. Abby, how could you do this? She's my sister. I met his gaze unflinchingly. And I'm your wife, Mark. Or have you forgotten that in between your affair with Lydia and defending your thieving sister? His face paled. You know about Lydia? Oh, I know everything, I spat, including the fact that she's pregnant. A collective gasp went through the room. Eleanor swayed on her feet, looking as if she might faint. Myra stepped forward, placing a steadying hand on my shoulder. Abby, perhaps we should continue this discussion in private. But I was beyond caring about propriety or privacy. The dam had broken, and years of pent-up frustration and anger came pouring out. No, Mom. I'm done hiding the truth. This family has been living a lie, and it's time everyone knew it. I turned to address the stunned guests. Mark has been cheating on me with his colleague. Julia has been stealing from me to fund her lavish lifestyle, and Eleanor and Myra have been turning a blind eye to all of it. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, unexpectedly, a slow clap started from the back of the room. I turned to see Lydia, her pregnant belly visible beneath her fitted dress. Bravo, Abby, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. You've certainly put on quite a show. Mark's face drained of color. Lydia, what are you doing here? She sauntered forward, a wicked gleam in her eye. I came to congratulate the happy couple, but it seems I've walked into something far more entertaining. I felt my control slipping. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. You have no right to be here, I hissed. Lydia laughed. Oh, but I think I do. After all, I'm carrying the next generation of this dysfunctional family. The room exploded into chaos once again. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and years of secrets came tumbling out. Through it all, I stood rooted to the spot, watching as the life I'd known crumbled around me. I'd wanted justice, revenge even, but this was destruction on a scale I hadn't anticipated. As the police arrived to sort out the mess, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Myra, her eyes filled with a mixture of pride and concern. Abby, she said softly, what happens now? I looked around the room. At Mark's defeated slump, Eleanor's shocked tears, the gossiping guests. Then I met my mother's gaze. Now, I said, my voice barely above a whisper, now we rebuild. But as the words left my mouth, I wondered if there was anything left to salvage from the wreckage of this night. I'd won the battle, but at what cost? As Detective Johnson approached me for a statement, I steeled myself. The war wasn't over yet, and I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. The days following Julia's disastrous engagement party were a blur of police statements, legal consultations, and tearful confrontations. I moved out of Mark's family home and into a small apartment, my mother insisting on staying with me. You don't have to do this alone, Abby, Myra said, unpacking a box of kitchenware. I sighed, collapsing onto the couch. I know, Mom, but I feel like I've torn this family apart. She sat beside me, taking my hand. No, sweetheart, they did that themselves. You just exposed the truth. A week later, I found myself face to face with Mark in our lawyer's office. He looked haggard, the weight of his actions evident in the dark circles under his eyes. Abby, he began, his voice hoarse, I know I've hurt you beyond measure, but is there any chance we could? I held up a hand, silencing him. No, Mark, there's no going back, not after everything that's happened. He nodded, defeated. As we signed the divorce papers, I felt a mix of sadness and relief wash over me. It was really over. Outside the office, I bumped into Jacob. His once confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a haunted look. I'm sorry, I said softly. I never meant to hurt you. He shook his head. Don't apologize, you saved me from a lifetime of deceit. Thank you. As he walked away, I realized that my actions, while painful, had freed more than just myself from Julia's web of lies. The final showdown came a month later, at Julia's trial. I sat in the courtroom, my heart pounding as she was led in, looking nothing like the polished socialite I'd known. Her eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of hatred and desperation. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. As the judge read out the charges, fraud, embezzlement, theft, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. Justice was finally being served. When it was my turn to testify, I stood tall, my voice steady as I recounted Julia's manipulations and thefts. I could feel Eleanor's glare burning into my back, but I didn't falter. Miss Thompson, the prosecutor asked, why did you wait so long to come forward? I took a deep breath. I wanted to believe in family, in loyalty, but I realized that true loyalty means standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. As I stepped down, I caught sight of Lydia in the back of the courtroom, her hand resting on her swollen belly. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of respect in hers. We'd never be friends, but in that moment I felt we understood each other. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all counts. As Julia was led away, I felt no joy, only a profound sense of closure. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a swarm of reporters, I felt my mother's arm around my shoulders. You did it, Abby, she whispered. You stood up for yourself. I turned to her, tears in my eyes. We did it, Mom. I couldn't have done this without you. As we pushed through the crowd, I caught sight of Mark standing alone, watching us. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw regret, sorrow, and perhaps a glimmer of pride. I nodded to him once, then turned away. That chapter of my life was closed. Later that evening, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the sun set over the city. My phone buzzed with a message from my old boss, offering me my job back. I smiled, feeling a surge of excitement for the first time in months. Tomorrow, I'd return to work. I'd rebuild my career, my life, my sense of self. As the last rays of sunlight faded, I raised a glass to the sky. Here's to new beginnings, I whispered. I'd been through hell, but I'd emerged stronger, wiser, and finally, truly free. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head on. After all, I was Abby Thompson, and I was nobody's victim anymore.